Westwood One Sports presents to you the most unique show in sports.
I'm going to say something now that some may take as a hot take, and I don't really care because I know that I'm right.
A show so staggeringly awesome and unapologetically original, you won't know what hit you.
Do you ever just get down on your knees and thank God that you know me and have access to my dementia?
Featuring the man himself, Nick Kostos.
For anyone else who says, oh, he's exaggerating, he's prisoner of the moment. First off, shut up. This is the National Football League. This is not the Big 12. It's not Pop Warner. An absolute disgrace, an atrocity, an affront. One of the most disgraceful performances that I have ever seen in 35 years watching National Football League football.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
What's up, everybody? Happy and merry, tremendous Football Thursday to you and yours. This is You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports. As we bring you the fastest show in all of sports. The show presented today and always by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. And on this Thursday morning, the world of sports is alive. And we're going to get to all the big stories, including the high-profile NFL job that nobody seems to want, what it is, what it means, and how it could impact next season and beyond in the National Football League. That is coming up later this hour. I'm going to tell all of you, all the listeners, all the viewers here on You Better You Bet, why Giannis, and you're going to disagree with this, I almost guarantee it, but I'm going to tell you why. Giannis Antetokounmpo needs to embrace his inner Shawn Michaels circa 1992. It's time for Giannis to go full heel. It's time. He's teasing it. It's time to make the turn. Ahead of the trade deadline, I'm going to tell you why that's the case after yet another miserable Milwaukee Bucks performance last night and another half-heel, half-face Giannis quote to the media after last night's game. 3 tremendous guests will join us today on the show. Odyssey Sports NFL insider Brian Baldinger. Looking forward to that spot with Baldy, talking Conference Championship Sunday in the NFL and more. The whale capper Drew Dinsicks will join us. His best bets for the Conference Championship games. We'll talk some NBA with Whale as well. And former Major League Baseball general manager and friend of the show, Steve Phillips of MLB Network and MLB Network Radio on the Mets trade for Freddie Peralta, the Yankees re-signing of Cody Bellinger, and everything going on right now in Major League Baseball, as baseball's got a lot of momentum right now in the month of January as we push towards the start of the new season. Steve Phillips will join us in the final hour of the show. And speaking of the final hour of the show, which of course is the Power Hour, all our bets for tonight will close the program. And I do have some bets in the NBA that I really love for tonight. YouTube.com/@thekostos is the YouTube address if you're listening to the show right now on the Odyssey app or Sirius or the Westwood One app, Sirius 375. Check out the show on YouTube, youtube.com/@thekostos. And the phone number, 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. But we officially begin the tremendous Football Thursday edition of You Better You Bet in Buffalo, with one of the most incompetent press conferences forget about sports, in the United States of this century. It's like 2017 United Airlines, customer forcibly removed from flight. United Airlines gives one of the most disastrous public relations answers that we've seen in modern American history. People go nuts. It's like that and the Bills press conference following the firing of head coach Sean McDermott. This press conference featuring the newly minted Buffalo Bills president of football operations, Brandon Beane, and Bills owner, Terry Pegula. Now, before I get into it, the press conference itself. What was said, why it's ridiculous, and why if you're a Bills fan, I think you have legitimate reason for concern moving forward. I need to start by saying this. None of what I'm about to say is a defense of Sean McDermott. None of this is to imply that I think the Bills made a mistake in the firing of Sean McDermott. You watch the show, you listen to the show, and if you're new to the show today, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you. But if you've been listening to the show or watching the show for any amount of time, whether it be years, whether it be months, hell, whether it be weeks, like 1 week, leading up to Saturday's divisional round game, which the Bills lost in overtime to the Broncos, you know my feeling on the matter. I have felt like Sean McDermott has needed to go 4 years. And I praised it earlier this week when the Buffalo Bills actually did it, and they pulled the trigger, and they fired Sean McDermott. And it doesn't mean that McDermott's a bad coach, just that the expiration date had been reached. And not everything that Terry Pegula said yesterday in the press conference was horrible, or was wrong, or was something worthy of laughter, worthy of criticism, or worthy of scorn. When Terry Pegula talked about why he fired Sean McDermott, I thought it made a lot of sense. And you don't have to agree with it. I do. But you don't have to agree with it. You, the listener, you, the viewer. But I think you have to acknowledge, even if you disagree with the decision, that the thought process behind it is pretty sound. It really, really is. When Pegula talks about walking into the Bills locker room on Saturday following the overtime loss in Denver and seeing his quarterback, is the way he described it, Josh Allen, that Josh Allen's in tears with his head down and he's inconsolable. And Pegula walks up to Josh Allen and talks about like the bad call on which I still think is a good call, the McMillan interception on the Brandon Cooks. Did he catch it? Did he not? And he references, Pegula says to Josh Allen, bad call. And Allen doesn't even pick his head up as he's sobbing. And he talks about the scene in the locker room. Now, we know that Terry Pegula's not making that up. Because to a man, to a woman, every single Bills writer and reporter that described that post-game scene and that particular locker room all said this was like a unique event. That they had never seen a locker room like this post-game. A group of dejected players like this post-game. And Pegula said, that's why he made the decision to fire Sean McDermott. Because it felt like they had hit the proverbial playoff wall and they were hitting it year after year after year. So you might look at that quote and say, okay, he fired him because they lost to Denver, and say knee-jerk reaction. I think it's the opposite. I think that if this were just one solitary loss in the McDermott era, there's no way they fire him. This is the cumulative effect of loss after loss. Soul-crushing defeat after soul-crushing defeat. Heart-stopping end-game failure after heart-stopping end-game failure that led to this decision to fire Sean McDermott. And in a postseason with no Mahomes, no Lamar, no Burrow, the Bills blew it. Period. And I'm not willing to entertain arguments to the contrary. And if you watch the game on Saturday, and I bet Buffalo, so I am acutely aware of this, the Bills were the better team in the game. They were. And you can criticize Josh Allen, whatever. If Josh Allen plays a cleaner game, the Bills win that game by 20. But you're never firing the MVP quarterback, so Sean McDermott had to go. So I had no issues with what Terry Pegula did, firing Sean McDermott, and I had zero issue with his rationale behind the firing of Sean McDermott. I get it, and I agree with it. Totally fine, all good in my book. Now, let's talk about the general manager. And now the president of football operations got promoted in Brandon Beane. Now, again, I will preface what I'm about to say with this to set the stage. In my estimation, the Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen. And that should be like the old when Stephen A. Smith had his show, Quite Frankly, for ESPN, which was like, I don't think lasted that long, but set the stage for a pretty legendary career for him. The show is called Quite Frankly, and at the end of the commercial, like for the show, he goes, the Patriots had Tom Brady, and quite frankly, that's all they need. And I don't know why I remember that. I found it funny, and I still remember it to this day. And I will paraphrase and imitate Stephen A. Smith here and just say, like the Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen. And quite frankly, that should be all they need. We see throughout history, throughout the history of the league, and we don't even have to leave like the last 10 years, the last 15 years, this century to know this. The most talented team does not always win the Super Bowl. And you know this, the listener and the viewer, because you are an educated sports fan. You are an educated football fan. You don't need, obviously you don't want to have an untalented roster, but the most talented team doesn't always win. We know that because we watch football on a year in, year out basis. And in my estimation, this is where I think that we go a little too far, where we say, well, like the Bills, like the roster sucks, they can't win. Stop it. Stop it. They have Josh Allen. And the roster is not filled with curtain-jerking jabronis. And I don't even mean this as a full-throated defense of Brandon Beane, that he's done this unbelievable job, right? You can certainly critique Brandon Beane's team building, the lack of Pro Bowlers that he's drafted, some high-profile misses. Not that some of these players are bad, like A.J. Epineza and Gregory Rousseau, for instance, 2 pass rushers, are not bad players, but you'd like to get more out of them. Like, they're not all busts, but maybe you haven't gotten everything that you'd like to get out of these players. So Brandon Beane is not a perfect general manager, and I'm not trying to say he is. My whole point with this is, if you've got Josh Allen, the fact that they haven't even gotten to a Super Bowl, like if you get there and you get blown out in the Super Bowl, at least you can say we got there. They never even got to a Super Bowl. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. And to me, that's on the coaching staff. And you can argue it's on the players, but again, you're never firing the quarterback who's won the MVP, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Someone has to be the fall guy. And that fall guy is Sean McDermott. Now, as it concerns Brandon Beane, if he had been fired along with Sean McDermott, I would not have batted an eyelash. I would have understood, said, okay, like you want it, like whole new start here, fresh start, hit the reset button. I would have totally gotten it. Also, the fact that he's staying, I don't really have much of an issue with either. If you want some organizational stability, and if you believe, and maybe you don't, but you have to acknowledge that there's at least some value behind it, some basis behind it, that part of the reason why the Bills have continued to fall short is because of the players that Sean McDermott demands to have on his defense. And when I say demands, I don't mean like he's pounding the table like I'm going to fire you if you don't get these guys, but you hire a defensive coach, he runs a certain scheme, you get players to fit that scheme, and maybe the players that you're getting and the scheme is not good enough. And the defense always falls apart when it matters the most. I think all of these things are fair to potentially say. So again, what could be more fair than me saying, if he gets fired, I wouldn't have batted an eyelash, but I understand the rationale to bring him back. Now here's where things completely fall apart for Brandon Beane and for Terry Pegula and the Buffalo Bills and their brain trust, and where this press conference took a turn to the theater of the absurd. Take a listen to this sound of Pegula and Brandon Beane talking about second-round wide receiver from a couple years ago, Keon Coleman, from the press conference yesterday.
Yeah, can I interrupt? I'll address the Keon situation. The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon. I'm not saying Brandon wouldn't have drafted him, but he wasn't his next choice. That was Brandon being a team player. He's taken, for some reason, heat over it and not saying a word about it, but I'm here to tell you the true story.
Okay. So that's a lie. So Terry Pegula is lying. I don't even want to say that he's lying. He may believe that what he's saying is true, which is even worse than lying, I think, is to actually say something like that and believe it's true. And the reason why we know it isn't true is because this was like when Jamar Chase spit on Jalen Ramsey and goes, well, I didn't spit on him. And then within minutes, because the internet never forgets, here's 100 different like Zapruder-style film angles of Jamar Chase spitting on Jalen Ramsey. We know it happened. In the same way that hashtag the internet doesn't forget. And we know that Brandon Beane wanted to draft Keon Coleman. That he wanted to make the pick. Which doesn't mean that Sean McDermott, maybe or Joe Brady didn't want him also, but Beane wanted to make the pick. There are multiple videos out there. Multiple. That like the Bills put out themselves of Brandon Beane leading up to that pick. They had the first pick of the second round. They could have traded that pick. They stood pat and picked Keon Coleman. And Brandon Beane wanted to make the pick. Again, how do we know? Because there's indisputable video and audio evidence that supports it. It's not AI slop. It's real. Beane wanted him. So is Pegula lying? I think that's doubtful. I think what's happening here is Beane's probably manipulating the situation. Now, here's where I think it really is just like, if that's all true, then what we have here is like, and I'll bring up a couple television shows here that you, the listener, and you, the viewer, are probably familiar with. This is like in Game of Thrones, right? The Red Wedding. You know, Roose Bolton and Walder Frey and Tywin Lannister all plotting against the Starks. Or in season 1 of The Sopranos, when Tony puts a hit out on Phil Parisi, right, who's Patsy Parisi's identical twin brother, and that's a storyline moving forward the rest of the series, with Patsy Parisi, including some people thinking Patsy's the one that ordered the hit on Tony in the final episode of the show. Or, you know, in like Succession, which I think is one of the best shows of all time. One of Kendall Roy's 9,000 plots against his dad, Logan Roy, to take over Waystar Royco. Now imagine in any of these like fictional scenarios, hypothetical scenarios, where this happens, right? Like the Red Wedding. Like we see Roose Bolton and company in a room, and they are making the plans, and they slaughter the Stark family, right? And they kill Robb Stark, and they kill Catelyn Stark, and they kill his bride, etc. And then the next day, there's a press conference. And they have to get up in front of the media and answer questions. And like, the media knows if they're lying, because there's evidence that supports everything that's happened, and they get up there and lie. Or Tony Soprano's got to get up there and give a press conference and say, I didn't order the hit on Phil Parisi. And it's like, well, actually, we know that you did. Or, hey, Kendall, we know you're plotting against your dad for the 9 millionth time. We have the evidence here. And they lie through their teeth. There's a press conference. Things are being brought to light. And like Beane and Pegula think they're going to get away with this outright lie? Now, the stakes are way lower here, obviously, right? Like, no one's lost their lives. I'm not trying to equate this to that, but it's the idea that there's this backstage machinations, the backstage politics, the lying and the manipulating that's usually left in the dark has now been brought to the light. Because Terry Pegula, for whatever reason, decided to say what he said when there is actual video and audio evidence to the contrary. And here's where, if you're a Bills fan, you can get rightly upset. Because now, it's not just that Brandon Beane is not picking the right players, if you have a beef with Brandon Beane and the way he picks the players. Now, you know that he's plotted against McDermott. Because what other conclusion could you draw, you as a logical person, you as a rational person, other than, in order for Brandon Beane to save his own ass, that this is what he did? That he threw McDermott under the bus, which, by the way, is the same thing Sean McDermott did a couple years ago after a cataclysmic and unacceptable Monday night loss to the Denver Broncos when he fired Ken Dorsey and promoted Joe Brady because he needed to save his own ass, right? But this would be like if McDermott got called up to a presser and McDermott lied through his teeth about it and got caught. This is what happened with Beane and Pegula. So now, Bills fans know that Brandon Beane is a backstage politician, to use a pro wrestling term. And not that, like, there aren't a ton of them, but now you know. Now you know. And as it concerns the owner now, Terry Pegula, who Sabres fans in Buffalo, and I'll be quick on the Sabres part, Sabres fans do not like Terry Pegula. And nationally, you, the listener, you, the viewer, may not know or may not care that that's the case. And that's totally fine. They're like a nondescript, what has become an irrelevant team in the National Hockey League. Pegula bought the team in 2011. They have missed the playoffs 14 consecutive years. 14 straight years under the ownership of Terry Pegula. And this is as someone who I'm a hockey fan, and I grew up a hockey fan, this is a once proud franchise. The franchise of Pat LaFontaine and Alexander Mogilny and Dave Andrechuk and the great Dominic Hasek and Ryan Miller more recently, that has been relegated to total irrelevance by this ownership group. Because they fired GMs and they fired coaches and they've swapped out players and they still stink, which means there's one constant, and it's the owner. And you also have the owner who, like, whether Keon Coleman stinks or not, and whether he doesn't take his job seriously or not, and he's a healthy scratch for games this season, like, it doesn't matter. It is very, very unsavory for an owner to get up there and talk about and drag a young player through the mud like Terry Pegula did. Whether Coleman deserves it or not, whether he says it behind closed doors or not, you can't do that publicly and drag an asset of yours and a human being of yours through the mud like that if you're the owner of the team. So now, Bills fans are thinking, damn, are we about to become the Sabres? Is that what's about to happen? The good news here, from my perspective, there's no chance that's true. Zero. At least not until Josh Allen retires. You still have a future first ballot Hall of Famer, a quarterback in Josh Allen. Still have that. And yes, things can go wrong, even though it feels like they can't with Allen. The Chiefs just missed the playoffs. It's not impossible. But man, it's hard to imagine the Bills ever being bad as long as number 17 is playing quarterback. And I still think that whoever this head coach is that they hire next, I have no idea who it's going to be. We'll get to one of the candidates in the next segment. I give the Bills a better chance to win the Super Bowl with whoever it is than with Sean McDermott, because McDermott had proven he couldn't get them over the hump. But what we have now is a situation with the owner and GM where all of a sudden they're showing their asses. And if you're Brandon Beane, the seat about to get real hot. And if you're Terry Pegula, not that your seat's hot because you're the owner, but you are about, because it's one thing for Sabres fans to be pissed and hockey fans to be pissed. You get Bills fans pissed. You get NFL fans pissed. This is an entirely different level of scrutiny for Terry Pegula. I still think the Bills are going to be okay moving forward. But now, you can at least call that into doubt and into question. And that, where we've ended up, is not something I expected, even after firing Sean McDermott. Just getting rolling here on a tremendous Football Thursday. On the other side, we will talk about one of the candidates for the Buffalo Bills head coaching job and the job that he doesn't want, this candidate, and why that matters so much for the 2026 NFL season and beyond. You better you bet on a Thursday. Nick Kostos, Westwood One Sports.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
Odyssey Sports NFL insider Brian Baldinger will join us at the top of next hour. Drew Dinsicks, the whale capper, to start the final hour of the show. Steve Phillips, former Major League Baseball general manager, still to come as well. On the shock news that the Mets pulled off close to midnight on the East Coast last night into the morning, acquiring Milwaukee Brewers star starting pitcher Freddie Peralta. All the bets for tonight will close the show. We'll take a visit to Kenny's Corner coming up to end this hour. But speaking of the Buffalo Bills, opened the show with, in their disastrous press conference yesterday with owner Terry Pegula and newly minted president of football operations, Brandon Beane. Pegula, Beane, and the Bills' decision makers have a busy day today. Because today, they will be meeting in person with former Giants head coach and one-time Bills offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, about Daboll potentially being the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So I need to inject my opinion here, just as a Giants fan, if the Bills were to make this hire. I think it would be terrible for the Bills. Terrible. For a couple different reasons. We can talk about schematically. Like, think about after Daboll leaves the Bills, right, to take the Giants job, and how Buffalo completely changed the way they ran their offense because they felt like it wasn't sustainable. Like, it was not sustainable to run that offense that way for Josh Allen, and they needed more of a concentration on the run game. And how wildly different the offense is today from what it was when Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator and the play caller and coaching Josh Allen. So schematically and on the field, I don't like it. And I can tell you all, as a Giants fan who watches every Giants game, I don't think Brian Daboll has it as far as being a head coach. And I think the proof is in the pudding with the product that they put out on the field. And yes, the first year was great, and he won Coach of the Year. And then you had two and a half miserable seasons. So if the Bills make this hire, I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to like it. And I've got good reasons why I'm not going to like it. But that's not the big story here to me. It's not that Daboll's interviewing for the job. Of course, they're going to interview Daboll for the job. He's on the market, used to work for the team, and ran a successful offense, to be fair to him, when he was with Buffalo. What's truly fascinating about Daboll right now is the report that came out from the Athletics NFL insider, Diana Russini, which said, if Daboll does not get a head coaching job in this cycle, that he is likely to be Robert Saleh's offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans. We also know Mike McDaniel, former Miami Dolphins head coach, looks likely to become the next offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Daboll, Tennessee, assuming he doesn't get a head coaching job. McDaniel, assuming something doesn't materialize that we don't expect. OC in LA with the Chargers. Now, what do Daboll and McDaniel have in common? It was reported, and we talked about it on this show, that the Philadelphia Eagles had interest in both to become their new offensive coordinator after the Eagles fired offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. Now, bear with me for a moment, and we'll view this through the Daboll lens for a second here, because like Mike McDaniel is going to work with Justin Herbert. It feels like that's like a pretty good decision by him as he looks to rehab his head coaching stock here, right? He doesn't want to go to Cleveland to be the head coach of the Browns. Tough to blame him, because if he flames out again, he's not going to get another job. That's usually how this goes, right? So let's view this through the Brian Daboll prism, and here's why this matters a lot. Now, Brian Daboll wants to be a head coach again. How do we know that? Because you would want to be if you were him. I would want to be if I were him. And he's interviewing to be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. He wants to be a head coach again. Now, let's assume that the Bills don't hire Brian Daboll and he doesn't get a job, right? We know that he wants to be a head coach again. So wherever he goes to be an offensive coordinator, he's not looking to plant his roots there and be there for 10 years. He wants to take that opportunity and take whatever time that is and kind of rehabilitate his image and rehabilitate his stock and kind of use that as a springboard to become a head coach again. So Brian Daboll, in essence, assuming that we all believe the reports, and a lot of reputable insiders, reporters, put this out there, right? that the Eagles had interest in Brian Daboll. What this means then is that think about this, and think about the Titans and what they were last year and what they've been, and what the Eagles have been recently. That Brian Daboll is choosing the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward and Robert Saleh over Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, consider that the Eagles, over the past handful of years, have seen two of their offensive coordinators become head coaches in Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore. You can even throw Jonathan Gannon into the mix, who took a head coaching job in Arizona following the Eagles' loss to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl when Steichen became the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Philadelphia is a huge media market, obviously. And the Eagles have had such a run of success that it stands to reason, right? If you're a coach and you're like, man, I can go to Philly and I can get this offense back on track, I'm going to get so much head coaching buzz, I'm not going to know what to do with it. That makes sense, right? Doesn't that make sense? And Daboll has still chosen Tennessee over Philadelphia. And the Eagles, you bet on this Thursday. Nick Kostos here with you, Westwood One Sports, youtube.com/@thekostos. Follow me on social media at the Kostos, TheKostos. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are reportedly interviewing former Chiefs offensive coordinator and Bears head coach Matt Nagy. And we had a report come down literally like a half an hour ago in real time on Thursday morning that they will also request an interview with Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle, who has worked underneath Ben Johnson, obviously, last year in Chicago. So we have the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl less than a calendar year ago, less than 365 days ago, and no one wants to take this job. This is, to use a really nerdy reference, this is like Defense Against the Dark Arts job at Hogwarts. And I know that's really nerdy for the Harry Potter fans. You will get it. And we've reached a point now where Jalen Hurts feels like, and I'm not a huge Bachelor guy, but I've watched some Bachelor in my life, as like my life is worn on. It's been on the air forever. I've seen some episodes of The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise. Jalen Hurts right now feels like, I'll use a woman for an example here, like a really attractive woman on The Bachelor who doesn't get a rose because of like the drama that she causes or whatever it is that she's doing. Even though she's really attractive, the guy doesn't want to keep her around anymore. And it kind of feels that's like where we're at right now with Jalen Hurts. Because I don't know where else you put the blame here. For Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, who both want to be head coaches again, why they wouldn't want to go to Philadelphia, to the Eagles media market. Because like LA is a big market and you get to work with Justin Herbert, sure. And maybe like Cam Ward has star potential and maybe you see it that way. Like Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP less than a calendar year ago. And could have won another a couple of years ago when he stood toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. And you have legit, real-deal offensive coordinators who want to be head coaches again, who look at that and say, no thanks. I'd rather go to L.A., I'd rather go to Tennessee. And it might force me, right now, on this Thursday, right now, where I might have to admit that I'm wrong. I have defended Jalen Hurts for a long time. I actually think it's fair to say that I am one of Jalen Hurts' most vocal defenders in the national media. Be like, I always have Jalen Hurts back. And think about it, right? Eagles lose to the Niners in the wild card round in disappointing fashion. And I came on the air the next day and said they need to trade A.J. Brown. Now, I'm not absolving Jalen Hurts of blame. But in the same way, you're not firing Lamar Jackson and you're not firing Josh Allen, you're not firing Jalen Hurts. And I have been reticent to put the blame on Jalen Hurts for a lot of the Eagles' offensive issues. Kevin Patullo was a punching bag on this show and others for a lot of the season. A.J. Brown, a punching bag. The offensive line isn't as good as it's once been. And that's definitely true on the Eagles' offensive line. Not as good this year as it was last year when it was the best unit in football and Saquon Barkley had a record-setting year. But at what point do I and others have to start saying at least some of this has to be on the quarterback. And there are reports that Jalen Hurts isn't comfortable, being asked to do things that a lot of quarterbacks are. And that he wants the freedom at the line of scrimmage to change the play calls to something more conservative. At what point do we have to acknowledge that he might be, and this is where I'm saying I'm wrong potentially, right? Is it possible that he's the biggest reason why the Eagles' offense failed this season? I actually think that might be the most likely scenario right now, right? Which means I'm wrong. I don't want to come on the air and say I'm wrong, but I have to if I am. Because if this were just an A.J. Brown issue or just like a chemistry issue, right? Like you could fix it by trading A.J. Brown. And if you were an offensive coordinator worth his salt, you could look at this and say, like, wow, we still have Devontae Smith and Goddard. And even though the offensive line might not be the 93 Cowboys, we still have good players. And we have the Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like, yeah, I can get this going here. Definitely. And now we have two instances of OCs who want to be head coaches again, looking like they're choosing other spots. Now, does this mean that the Philadelphia Eagles are screwed heading into next season? No. It can get turnarounds. There's no question. It's January. And we'll see what they end up doing. But in a division where I think we can say the Washington Commanders will be better than they were last year. Hard to be worse. The New York Football Giants will be better than they were last year. Here's John Harbaugh. Hard to be worse. And the Dallas Cowboys are likely to be better next year than they were this year. Get better players on defense, a better defensive coordinator, better defensive coaching. I think you can make the case that all three teams in the division outside of the Eagles will be better in 26 than they were in 25. And the early signs here are that the Philadelphia Eagles might be a team on the descent heading into 2026. We'll talk about this and more with Brian Baldinger to start next hour on the show. But coming up next, we will take a trip to Kenny's Corner, the best sound of the day that was in the world of sports and the world of life. We'll read some of your comments from YouTube as well. YouTube.com/@thekostos. Send them in. YouTube.com/@thekostos here on a Thursday, presented by BetMGM.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Odyssey Sports NFL insider Brian Baldinger to start next hour on all things NFL. Conference Championship Sunday coming up. And all the head coaching hires and everything going on in the head coaching and coordinator carousel in the National Football League. YouTube.com/@thekostos. YouTube.com/@thekostos. Our friend Mark chiming in. He doesn't think anyone would want to go to Philadelphia to be the Eagles offensive coordinator. And Void Null says, would you want to put up with A.J. Brown? I think the answers to those questions, I think, are both yes. If you feel like you can win there, right? And A.J. Brown, for all his faults and his foibles, and I've talked about them a lot on this show, I said I think they should trade him. For all his faults and foibles, he a great player. He is one of the best receivers in the league. And if you were an offensive coordinator and you wanted to be a head coach, on paper, the Eagles seem like a great job. And the fact that no one wants to go there, apparently, means that something else is going on there. And I can be wrong about it. It feels to me like what's going on there is people don't think that Jalen Hurts has what it takes. And I don't know that I agree with it, but where there's smoke, there may be fire as it concerns Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Our friend Lizzie on Terry Bagula says the Buffalo Sabres are hot this year. Are they? I'm going to take a look at the NHL standings here. I'll be honest, I pay a lot of attention to the NHL come playoff time. Not so much in the regular season. So let's see where the Buffalo Sabres are at. Is Buffalo a playoff team right now? The Sabres are the top wildcard team. How about that in the Eastern Conference? But, Toronto, Philly, and the Devils and the Capitals on their heels. And that was today's edition of Talking Hockey here on You Better You Bet. We'll bring our friend Kenny Henderson to the show in a moment for Kenny's Corner, but we got to talk about our show sponsor at BetMGM. Today, BetMGM players will receive an Australian Open odds boost token. To use the token, add an Australian Open tennis bet to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app today. Our engineer, Kenny Henderson, with us now with some great sound to play. Kenny, what do we got? Welcome to the show.
Had to drop the bed real quick. Yeah, we got all football sound today, so we're going to start on the Amon-Ra St. Brown podcast. The Lions earlier this week hiring Drew Petzing to be their offensive coordinator. A lot of Lions fans not happy about it. Let's take a listen to Amon-Ra St. Brown clapping back at those upset fans.
Bro, I see crazy Lions fans talking crazy, like, oh, why would we do this? Like, bro, do you guys, have no trust in Dan? Like, in the Lions, you think they would just hire a random dude? Be for real. You think they don't know what they're doing? They don't do their research. They don't interview. Most of you guys don't know really much about anything, about any ball.
Wow.
So Amon-Ra could have stopped halfway through that and it would have been totally fine. He let his anger show a little bit there at the end. Also, to be fair, Dan Campbell did hire a guy in John Morton last year, and John Morton was so bad, right, that he had to take the play calling duties away from John Morton, and now John Morton is no longer with the team. Bill Zimmerman, our executive producer, did Amon-Ra St. Brown commit a huge faux pas here by insulting his own fan base?
I think he really did. And here's the thing. Here's what everyone's just I see a lot of NFC North fans jumping, oh yeah, Lions fans don't know ball. I actually think pretty much every NFL player thinks that of their own fan base. They just don't say it. He just didn't shut his mouth when he needed to.
Tyler, your thoughts on Amon-Ra St. Brown and the hiring of Drew Petzing for the Detroit Lions?
I mean, I think I know ball, so I'm kind of offended by that Amon-Ra comment, to be honest. Just like that Petzing, they didn't run a real offense in Arizona, so I understand why fans were complaining about the Lions hiring him. They just peppered Trey McBride with carries, and they turned Kyler Murray into a pocket passer. So I understand why the fans are mad. And I'm mad too. I think I do know ball. I'm a real ball knower, so you're wrong on that.
Well, Tyler, you weren't last week when you gave me Chris Kirk in my Golf Survivor League, but hopefully the golf bets we'll get Tyler's golf. That's okay. Hopefully today this will be a better week for Tyler with the golf bets. Yeah, Petzing comes from the Stefanski tree where the tight end is kind of the focal point of the offense. So I think Sam Laporta is going to have a huge year next year. Drew Petzing does not inspire a lot of confidence, even if he's going to be awesome. You understand where Lions fans are coming from. Also, he looks just like Brad Evans. And, it's not great. It's not great. Kenny, what do we have next?
The Steelers are looking for a new coach for the first time in nearly 2 decades, and Steelers legend Big Ben has been vocal on his opinions of the team since he's retired, and he had this to suggest to be the successor to Mike Tomlin.
My next choice would be literally Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is an offensive-minded veteran coach, guy that's been there, done that. He has Pittsburgh ties. So he understands the Steeler way and what it is to be a Steeler and understands the Rooney family and how it works and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Ben would go on to add that he also thinks that would mean Aaron Rodgers would come back. Just like, do people remember, guys? Also, just like, Bill, you've been producing radio for a long time. It sounds like Ben doesn't prepare for this show, and he's just like coming up with opinions. He's like, "Well, I think the next head coach should be Mike McCarthy sounds good." Does Ben Roethlisberger prepare for his own podcast?
He definitely does not, and he kind of admits it at multiple times during this podcast. So when I was listening to it a little bit, he literally says, because he says my next choice would literally be Mike McCarthy. His first choice was, quote, whoever the Ben Johnson is in this cycle. There is no Ben Johnson in this cycle, Ben. That's the problem.
So Ben is literally not preparing for this podcast. I love how it's like did people, and I'm not saying like they shouldn't hire Mike McCarthy. I wouldn't, but I'm not saying they shouldn't. It's like, people were so fed up with McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers by the end of that in Green Bay. People couldn't wait to break them up. That was in 2018. LaFleur's first year as Packers head coach was 2019. And now we want to reunite them like a decade later in Pittsburgh with Rodgers set to turn 43 after McCarthy failed in Dallas. What is he? Look, Ben Roethlisberger's going to the Hall of Fame in the first ballot. He won a couple Super Bowls. He's a legendary quarterback. Great part of Steelers history. I can do without Ben Roethlisberger's podcast. I don't think this is where, like, when people say everybody's got a podcast, like, this actually lends credence to that argument. We don't need a Ben Roethlisberger podcast. He's got like $100 million. Like, go be rich somewhere and stop talking about the Steelers and talking about football. Go away. Like, whoever the next Ben Johnson is. That's great. And I'd love to be 6'5". Give me a
Sean
freaking break, Ben. I want to do more Kenny's Corner later in the show because I enjoyed this. Hour 1 done, hour 2 for you coming up on the other side. We will start hour number 2, Odyssey Sports NFL Insider, the great Brian Baldinger.
Are on You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos.
Hey, this is Joe Buck, and you have done it. You have found it. You are listening to You Better You Bet. Great decision.
Hi, this is Kevin Harlan of CBS, Westwood One, and TNT, and I'm listening as you do every day to You Better You Bet with the most handsome single man in the radio business. A man who, if I was not married for 38 years, I might consider myself the kind of guy that can electrify a listening audience and a crowd of bystanders watching him do what he does so well each and every day. Continue to listen right here on You Better You Bet.
This is You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Brought to you by BetMGM.
The tremendous Football Thursday edition of You Better You Bet rolls on. Nick Kostos, our amazing crew, and you here on Westwood One Sports. Loved the first hour of the show, talking about that debacle of a press conference in Buffalo with owner Terry Pegula and general manager Brandon Beane, where I don't think they covered themselves in glory for the whole Keon Coleman conversation, with video evidence proving that they are in fact lying about what happens there with Keon Coleman. Just like, no need to do that. Make the firing, make your new hire, move on. Why have that happen? If you're a Bills fan, I would understand why you would have some consternation about what's going to happen moving forward with your team. Even if I feel like you've got Josh Allen, I feel like it'll be okay. I certainly understand the anxiety that a lot of Bills fans probably have right now following that press conference. Also talked about how crazy it is that apparently no one wants to be the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator, with Brian Daboll apparently going to be the OC in Tennessee if he doesn't take a head coaching job, and Mike McDaniel going to L.A. to work with the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, and Justin Herbert. Maybe there's something to all the smoke out there that Jalen Hurts is one of the big problems in Philadelphia. And I haven't thought that's been the case. I've defended him. It's getting a little harder to defend as of right now. Drew Dinsicks still to come next hour. His best bets for Conference Championship Sunday. Former Major League Baseball general manager Steve Phillips next hour to talk about the Mets trade for Freddie Peralta. Everything happening right now in Major League Baseball. And I'm going to tell everybody why Giannis Antetokounmpo needs to embrace his inner Hulk Hogan and become Hollywood and drop the leg on the Bucks and turn heel and get the hell out of Dodge. But joining us right now to start hour number 2, the great Brian Baldinger, Odyssey Sports NFL insider, host of the Best Football Show podcast. You can also catch Baldy on the call tonight on NFL Network, 8 p.m. Eastern, of the American Bowl with Mike Morgan doing play-by-play, Gabriella Cruz on the sideline. This is going to be awesome. 8 p.m. Eastern tonight on NFL Network. Insider calls brought to you by Nationwide for your insurance and financial needs. Nationwide is on your side. What's going on, my friends?
Well, just that, Nick. Thank you for the plug. I got a million notes over here. The American Bowl tonight in Orlando, Florida. It's a beautiful night for football, and I think it's the first Thursday, Nick, that we haven't had football. Maybe since the beginning of September. So if you need a football fix on a Thursday night, tune in tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I just want to be just really honest with you and the audience right now. I think the person in this country that is most like acutely aware of the fact that there's no Thursday night football tonight is my wife. Let me tell you something.
Nick, or what?
If I text my wife and say, listen, my friend Baldy's calling the American Bowl tonight. I gotta be locked. I'm sending you the lawyer bills for my divorce. American Bowl coming up 8 o'clock Eastern tonight. There's so much for us to hit. We'll get to both games on Conference Championship Sunday. We'll talk about Jarrett Stidham, the Rams and the Seahawks, Drake May and the Patriots. Let's start though with Buffalo. The Bills firing Sean McDermott. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And then what we saw at this press conference and your thoughts on Brandon Beane and Terry Pegula.
Well, there's probably a reason why we don't see a lot of owners in press conferences. We saw Steve Bisciotti last week. That was pretty colorful. We saw Terry Pegula. There's a lot to pick at right there. There's no real reason to bring up Keon Coleman. There's just none. I mean, Keon Coleman helped him win games. He probably helped him not win some games. But to single out a single player like that, there's just no need for it. You can talk about, look, I made a decision here. Brandon Beane is going to be in charge of finding our next coach. It's really the story, all right? Whatever, if you thought Sean McDermott couldn't get you over the hump, that's fine. They just made that decision in Baltimore. They moved on. But if you have to feel like you have to go chapter and verse on every single thought about watching Josh Allen in tears in the locker room, there's just really no need to go into any of that. Josh doesn't want to hear that. Keon Coleman doesn't want to hear it. I just think that it went too far and it wasn't necessary. But he's the owner; he can do whatever he wants to do. But I didn't think it was necessary. And then we'll see. The one thing about firing a guy like Sean McDermott, who I have a great deal of respect for, and got to know when he was on Andy Reid's staff and what Andy Reid thought of him way back when, is all right. You want to fire a guy? I always say this, Nick. It doesn't matter if it's Buffalo, Baltimore, wherever. You want to fire your coach? Fine. Who are you getting? Who's replacing him? And I don't know that they know that yet, which is part of the process. But that's not an easy thing to do.
I want to play devil's advocate with you here. I did this with Herm Edwards on the show earlier this week, right? And look, you know how much I respect you. You've forgotten more about football than I know. But I just want my opinion on this, someone that's watched the league forever. I just think it reaches a point where this would be year 9 if they kept McDermott. The history of the league shows this is unprecedented. If you're going to be together this long and have never reached a Super Bowl, you're probably not getting there. And to lose in the way that they did when they were the better team on Saturday, in my estimation, with no Mahomes, no Lamar, no Joe Burrow, if it's me, and I don't have to be right here, this is just my opinion, I would take my chances with literally anybody else to be, within reason, to be the head coach of the team. Because if you know behind door number 1 is someone that can't get you there, wouldn't you rather take your chances with whoever's behind door number 2, even if the floor is lower and maybe you have a bad year? At least you know that you have a better % chance of getting to the big game. Your thoughts on that thought process that I have, and I think that some other people have as well.
Well, how many years, Nick, did it take Bill Cowher to win a Super Bowl?
Well, Cowher was the head coach, and different quarterbacks, though, I guess would be my point there.
All right, but they still were patient 15 years. He's still a Super Bowl winning coach. It took 15 years. I understand your point, but just to change for change's sake, they've owned the division 5 out of the last 6 years. It always gets you, a ticket into the dance when you win the division. That's where you got to start. I'm not defending the decision by Terry Pegula. I just don't think in the press conference he had to go that far. But your point is valid. You probably, if you can't do it in 9 years, can you do it in 12 or 15? How much longer are you going to go? I don't have a problem with the decision. I just didn't think it was handled, all that. I think they just said a whole lot more than they needed to be said.
I don't think anyone could dispute that. Who would be, Baldy, and look, I don't know if we know who all the candidates are, but if Brian Baldinger, I think Bills fans might love this man. You should look into this. Brian Baldinger, president of operations, Buffalo Bills. I think Bills fans would rather have you right now than Brandon Beane. Who do you think would be the best hire right now, or at least one of the best hires to coach Buffalo and coach Josh Allen and coach up that defense next season?
Well, I think you have to really look at what Joe Brady has done. He won a national championship at LSU. With Joe Burrow, obviously it was an elite talent, but I don't think they lost a game. And Joe was a big difference coming in there. He really kind of rescued this offense that was struggling 2 years ago and really made it much better. I mean, I think you have to talk to Joe Brady. I mean, he's a young guy with a good, offensive mind. I think that would be a good starting point. But, there's guys out there right now that I think, if Mike McDaniel could take a job, it looks like he's going to be the coordinator with the Chargers, but I think you should talk to Mike. But I think, to say, okay, Brian Daboll, maybe Brian Daboll's second chance. He's a little bit better. Maybe he's got a better staff because that was his issue. That's the problem, Nick, is that you can hire any of these guys. They might be qualified, but what is their staff? Like Aaron Kromer just resigned. Aaron Kromer was one of the top 5 offensive line coaches in this league. Like there's a big reason why James Cook won the rushing title this year. Not to knock James Cook, but what Aaron Kromer is teaching needs to be taught. Like he's a great coach. You're going to lose that. So, Brian Daboll, I think, is a good coach. His staff, like you fire Wink Martindale for what? You fire your offensive line coach for what? Like he made all these staff changes, and I didn't see improvement. And so getting the staff together, the longer you wait, the harder it is to get it together.
Just as a Giants fan, I do not think that would be a great hire for the Buffalo Bills at head coach with Brian Daboll. You bet on this Thursday. Odyssey Sports NFL insider Brian Baldinger is with us. Baldy will be on the call tonight, NFL Network, the American Bowl at 8 p.m. Eastern. Check it out tonight on NFL Network. What the hell is going on with the Eagles' offensive coordinator search, and what do you think it means?
Well, look, if you go back to the search when they fired Doug Peterson, and they were 4-11-1, they missed on every head coach. Brandon Staley, Arthur Smith. Like they struck on everything. Andy Weidel, who was interviewing for the Atlanta Falcons GM job today, knew Nick Sirianni because he's a Pittsburgh guy, and Nick's brother was coaching at down the road in Pittsburgh and knew the family, knew him. And Nick Sirianni was about the 8th guy on the list, and he became a pretty good candidate. So while they might not be hitting all the big names right now, the most important thing is getting the right guy. And I don't think it has a lot to do with what people are speculating. Well, it's about the quarterback. It's about this. They've got talent on that team. They've got structure on that organization. They're not afraid to spend money. It's an attractive job. And you might, and they've won a Super Bowl and been to a Super Bowl with that quarterback. And it wasn't because everybody else was great and the quarterback was average. The quarterback's a Super Bowl MVP. He wins a lot of football games, the way that he plays. It's different than Justin Herbert, who doesn't win anything. It's different than Josh Allen, who hasn't won anything yet. It's a different style. And so, all right, I think they need some new ideas and new innovation. All right, let's find the best guy to do that. And if Mike McDaniel doesn't want the job or somebody else doesn't want it, I don't think it's because it's a bad job.
Why do you think it is?
Why do I think it's a good job?
No, why? So, like you said, you don't think that's why Mike McDaniel doesn't want the job. What would the reason be? And this is what I said earlier, right? If you're Daboll or you're a Mike McDaniel, you obviously want to be a head coach again. I look at the Eagles, they sent Steichen became a head coach, Kellen Moore became a head coach, huge media market, where you do well as the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia next year, you're probably going to get a head coaching job, in that cycle. So if that's true, and I think it is, why are they bypassing Philadelphia? I know how plugged in you, so this is not me putting you on the spot. I think that your information's better than mine. So I'm just asking, why do you think that is then, that they are bypassing this job in favor of others?
Well, it could be you'd rather live in Los Angeles, in that area, than in Philadelphia.
Fair.
Mike McDaniel's got a young family. It could be as simple as that. Where you want to live. I've talked to Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier and those guys. And I've talked to, I know the coordinator that just got fired. It's not easy in that market when you're not winning or not playing well. It's not easy. They were egging the offense coordinator's house in Philadelphia. because they weren't playing well. Like, it's a difficult place to coach. Like, Kellen Moore kind of laughed it off, but they were struggling for a while before they won the Super Bowl. He was feeling the heat, it's a different market than a lot of these other places.
I think that's really fair. And I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan, and I've been a little surprised by what's happened with McDaniel choosing the Chargers, Daboll reportedly choosing the Titans if he doesn't get a head coaching job. I want to ask you about every single coaching vacancy and the ones that have been filled, but at some point we probably have to talk about Conference Championship Sunday, because that's pretty interesting also. So let's do that, my friend. Patriots at the Broncos for the AFC Championship. Just like traveling back in time here. Drake May, obviously the quarterback of New England. Jarrett Stidham for the Denver Broncos. Now, Baldy, I know you know this, but once upon a time, a young 7-year-old Nick Kostos watched Jeff Hostetler lead the Giants to Super Bowl glory in Super Bowl 25. The betting market has been into the Denver Broncos the last couple days. The Patriots are favored, but this was 6. Now we're down to 4.5. And I think bettors, Baldy, don't see that huge of a difference. Bo Nix is better than Stidham, but don't see that big of a difference between the two. Where do you come down on that, Nix to Stidham, and what do you think we'll see on Sunday at Mile High for the AFC Championship?
Well, I've known Jarrett Stidham since he came out of Stephenville High School in Texas. He was recruited by Art Briles and, replacing RG3 a couple of years after RG3 left. But, that was going to keep Baylor in the top 10 program. And then things fell apart for Art Briles there at Baylor, and he traded out. But he was the number one high school recruited quarterback in the country back then. He went to Baylor, he stayed in Texas. This guy's been a top-flight quarterback. Sean Payton watched him as a Raider under Josh McDaniel carve up the San Francisco 49ers in 2022 for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, and he looked great against the number one defense in football. And Sean took him and played a couple games when he got rid of Russell Wilson. And here's the thing. I think Jarrett Stidham knows how to play the game. I think he'll be fairly poised. But Championship Sunday, Nick, you're seeing the 4th-ranked defense in football. You saw what C.J. Stroud just did against that defense. Like, that secondary is as good as anybody in football. Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, Carlton Davis. They're elite. Craig Woodson. They're an elite group. At some point, no matter what Sean Payton tries to do, from a game plan, from running the football, all the things that you'd want to do to protect and help your quarterback, at some point, he's going to have to make 3, 4, 5 throws to win the game, the way Drake May did last week. Even though he didn't play great, but he made the touchdown throw to Stephon Diggs, which was an elite throw, a stick throw, and a great catch, and the one to Kayshon Boutte to put the game on ice. At some point, Jarrett Stidham's either going to make the throws or he's not. And if he can, then Denver can move on to the Super Bowl. And while you mentioned, the Giants' backup quarterback, it was the same thing with Nick Foles in Philadelphia. He was awful the last 2 games, replacing Carson Wentz. He was terrible on Christmas against the Raiders. He was terrible against the Cowboys week 17. But he got better and better to the point where he's a Super Bowl MVP. And he made 10 unbelievable throws to beat the Patriots. So, can he make those throws in big spots? Because the defense isn't giving you a lot. And he's going to have to step up. And we'll see if he can or not. I don't know if the line is right or wrong right now and how they're reading this thing. And if he can make the throws, Denver can move on to the Super Bowl.
Sounds like you think I don't want to put words in your mouth. Sounds like you like New England based on that answer. True, false?
I actually like Denver. I like Denver.
To win the game.
To win the game. Yeah, I like.
Right.
I like
Tell
Denver.
us why.
I'd like, because I think defensively, I think they're very talented. I don't think we've seen the best of Denver yet. Obviously, the Jaquan McMillan catch, no catch, interception, no interception probably was the difference in the game. But sometimes these things come down to a call in these big moments. But I feel like Denver's defense, we haven't even seen the best of them yet. I think that Jonathan Cooper hasn't done anything in any of these games. Like, he needs to wake up. Maybe he will. But I think they have what it takes in order to kind of stifle. Like, I don't think we saw weaknesses on the offense line of the Patriots last week, and that was at home. It's going to be harder. I know Will Anderson's not going to be out there this week, but Nick Bonito he's a piranha out there. His takeoff is as good as anybody's. Like, they've got guys that can rattle Drake May in this game, and it's going to be a tough atmosphere.
I don't know if it was Spencer Brown I think it was Spencer Brown who was said after the game, and like I saw it in the moment, held the you-know-what out of Jonathan Cooper on the play that Allen missed Dawson Knox at the end of regulation. I'm looking at I can't believe they missed that call. That was the one where I would say Jonathan Cooper, like maybe we have a different conversation about him if not for that hold that Spencer Brown admitted to. I don't know if we'll close with the Rams Seahawks in a second. I don't know if you're into like I love this stuff. No one else has to be, and I mean that sincerely. It's like legacy stuff, right? And like the history of the league.
Yeah.
Let's say that Sean Payton gets this done, right? Which will be wins the Super Bowl with two different teams and has one with the backup quarterback. Now, Parcells did it with the backup quarterback, obviously, with Hostetler. The 86 Giants were the best team in the league that year. And I think you can even say, like the year the Saints beat the Colts were big favorites in that Super Bowl. And the Saints beat them in the game by 2 scores. But the Saints, I think, I still think the Vikings were the best team that year, but obviously everything that happened at the end of that game here. Yep. If the Broncos get this done with a backup quarterback, Sean Payton has to ascend to that rarefied air that we reserve for the likes of Belichick, Landry, Noel, Reed.
No, he
that's fair to say, right?
Yeah, no, he takes a big leap. He's already thought about he's got a Hall of Fame quarterback in one organization. He's never had a highly drafted quarterback where he had to develop. That's a whole different game than what he's done with Bo Nix. And now if you've got to do it with the backup quarterback to go to another Super Bowl, I think it really he makes a big jump personally. And he would get a lot of respect from his idol, Bill Parcells, who he imitates, in my mind, a great deal of time. Inflections, attitude, giving the press a good whipping some days. Yeah. He learned a lot from Bill. It's funny to listen to because I hear Parcells when he talks, and he just knows he just knows how to push those buttons with players, with the media, how to get guys ready. It's a very young offensive team. Receivers, running backs, the whole thing, quarterback now. So it's different. Like when he won in New Orleans, Nick, they led the league in takeaways that year. He got Drew Brees a lot of extra at-bats. They don't lead the league in takeaways. It's been a problem. He's talked about it all season long. Last week they got him, and it helped him get over the hump with Buffalo.
What's so interesting about what you just said about Parcells, we'll close with Rams Seahawks in a second. I think it was Troy Renk. I think he works for the Denver Post, but he's covered the Broncos forever. And he brought up what Peyton said to the locker room in the wake of the Bo Nix injury. And he mentioned that when before the Giants played the Niners in the 1990, which was literally the 35th anniversary of that game was, I think, 2 days ago. I remember watching that game. What Parcells said to the locker room before the Giants on the Matt Barr 42-yard field goal as time expired to win 15-13 to stop the three-peat, that Parcells said, if we lose this game, it's not going to be because of Jeff Hostetler. It's going to be because one of you dumb mother effers does something effing stupid. That's why we're going to lose. And apparently, Peyton said the same thing to the Denver Broncos in a team meeting this week.
Oh, no, I'm telling you. But Parcells has that effect on everybody that's coached with them, been in that room with them, played for them. The stories are nonstop.
It's amazing, and I love this stuff. Rams and the Seahawks for the NFC Championship, Baldy. I and a lot of other people believe that this game is the Super Bowl. Winner of this game will win the Super Bowl. Do you believe that? And who do you think wins on Sunday in the Pacific Northwest? Seattle, a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I think Seattle's the best team. I know they had a miraculous comeback, a couple of weeks ago, down 30-14, came back to win it in overtime. I know all the stuff that's happened. But Seattle, just being around that team, you can feel this rare chemistry that they have for everybody. Now, winning kind of manufactures that a bunch, but I think it's just real. And sometimes these coaches come in and it happens early in these coaches' career, where they got the team, they've listened to them, they've got the talent. Schneider's done a great job of building that team. I think no matter what Sam Darnold does, if he really just lays an egg, they're not going to overcome that. But even if he makes a mistake here or there, I feel like this team is good enough to overcome it because I think this team feels like they're here in this spot because of Sam, not because everybody else is great. But I feel like they've got all the pieces, receiver, the running back. I knew losing Charbonnet is a big deal, but Kenneth Walker is more than capable of handling the load. I feel like this is a team that is a rare team. I don't know that they can go on a run. I feel like this team this year has been the team to beat.
If the Rams play their A-plus game on Sunday and the Seahawks play their A-plus game, you think Seattle wins?
No, I think the Rams will win if they do that, but I don't.
That's
know
what's
that
so fun, right?
That's
what's so interesting, right?
You're asking all the right questions. If Matt Stafford, who's seen this defense,
because they haven't been A-plus, right? In the first 2 playoff games, they were like, you could argue they're lucky to win both of them. But if it feels like if they can put the pedal to the metal, like that's what's so fascinating about this, I think.
Yeah. Puka Devontae did very little in that game in Chicago, and they won the game. But Stafford is very difficult to confuse. The only way you really beat Stafford is if you hit Stafford and you really affect them. And they could do that. They're more than capable. Leonard Williams and the whole group out there is elite. But I feel like what Seattle does defensively, which is Mike McDonald had the number 1 defense in Baltimore. They couldn't win a Super Bowl. They had the number 1 defense this year. The way he teaches it with the talent that he has, it's very, very tough on a quarterback. But if there's one quarterback that can handle what they throw at you and the receivers that he has, it's the Rams. They're capable of defeating this defense, which is, San Francisco couldn't score a touchdown in the last 2 games they played.
I have had goosebumps listening to that answer. This is like football nirvana coming up on Sunday. This is going to be the best. Baldy, we love you, man. Can't wait to watch you in the American Bowl tonight on NFL Network. I may DVR it just because I'd like to keep my marriage going. 8 p.m. Eastern tonight with Mike Morgan and Gabriella Cruz. Baldy on the call of the American Bowl. My friend, thank you so much. Enjoy Championship Sunday.
Thank you, Nick. Talk next week, buddy. See you, man.
The great Brian Baldinger joining us here on You Better You Bet, host of the Best Football Show podcast. Insider Calls brought to you by Nationwide. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side. More You Better You Bet on a Thursday. Westwood One Sports coming up next, presented by BetMGM.
The defense has been grossly underrated and overlooked consistently throughout the year. They were really an elite unit. Were they as elite as Houston Texans? Statistically, no. Were they as elite as the Seattle Seahawks? Statistically, no. But they were not that far off in the grand scheme of things as a team that really just brought it, man. I know the conditions played a factor there. You had a wet snow, a starter's rain turned to a heavy wet snow late in the game, some light accumulations, and guys, as a result, the ball was very sloppy. Guys are dropping passes all over the place. C.J. Stroud was just abysmal, though. Decision-making was bad. He was under constant duress. The offensive line was bad. The blitz packages were exotic. They were well-schemed, well-disguised, and it kept Houston out of sorts and out of sync as a result. Stroud with those 4 INTs. I thought he was going to get yanked for the giraffe neck and Bills at one point in the game, who looked pretty good and, a few starts earlier this season. But D'Amico Ryan stuck with CJ Stroud. But kudos to New England Patriots on the defensive end. Drake May made some mistakes again with his ball protection. I felt that was going to be an issue, and it was at times. And Ramondre Stevenson was awesome between the tackles. Got to give him credit where credit is due, but the defense is what really won the game for New England. It is an area they're just not getting enough love in. A team that's saying, hey, look at us. Our unit is just as elite as some of the others in the NFL.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
All right, we'll get back to the NFL Coaching Carousel. We'll talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the whale capper Drew Dinsick will join us next hour as well. But joining us right now here, right after Brian Baldinger, this is the beauty of You Better You Bet. We got Conference Championship Sunday coming up. We have all the NFL coaching news. So much going on in the NFL. So we have Brian Baldinger on, A-plus guest. Right now, let's bring in an A-plus guest to talk Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball is absolutely on fire right now. Kyle Tucker signing with the Dodgers, the Yankees bringing back Cody Bellinger, and the New York Mets on the stroke of midnight on Wednesday into Thursday, trading for Milwaukee Brewers stud starting pitcher Freddie Peralta. Joining us right now here on a Thursday on Westwood One Sports, friend of the show, the great Steve Phillips, former Major League Baseball general manager, Sirius XM MLB Network Radio, MLB Network, and TSN on Twitter at Steve Phillips GM. What's going on, my friend? Welcome back to the show.
Listen, good to be with you again. How's everything?
Well, let's start with this, Steve, because I feel like longtime listeners and viewers of the show will remember your last appearance with us, where I think you kind of took us aback. We may have done like a full segment on that interview after you came on, because we were a little concerned for your health, my man. I think you said, I don't know if it was Celsius or whatever the energy drink was, because you do the morning show on MLB Network Radio, and obviously there's breaking news at night, and you're doing the breaking news, and you're working in the morning. How many energy drinks is Steve Phillips on today, the morning of Thursday, January 22nd?
Yeah, I appreciate your concern, and so yeah, I've had 3 cups of coffee and 1 Celsius so far today. and I'm feeling pretty good. I do have a Diet Coke in my bag just in case I need a little hit before I tape the Top 100 Prospects show at MLB Network today. But then I'll be good. I'll probably crash, with sleep on my drive home back to Connecticut, which could lead to potential crash in the car. So, yeah, I think that I'm in mid-season form right now.
That is okay. But there's a lot there. Like, the best part about this is when you hear something like that, you would think like, wow, this person can't possibly look very good. And then you look at Steve and he's like you're like wine, dude. Like, you get better with age, which is, I just find all this to be very funny. And thank you for joining us here on a busy day. Sincerely, much appreciated. Let's get to the news, man, because baseball's usually not hot like this in January. The New York Mets, one of your former teams in the news right now, right? Mets fans were pissed at the GM, small market GM. Steve Cohen, the owner, doesn't want to spend the money. And boom, here's Luis Robert. And boom, here's Bo Bichette. And then last night, here's Freddie Peralta. Your thoughts, Steve, on the New York Mets and what they have accomplished here over the last week?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It feels like it's been very reactive offseason that, they've been doing a lot of pivoting. When a guy signs, they go in a different direction. And so, and for much of it, it feels like they've always taken a lesser player than the one that they lost. So, Brandon Nimmo and Marcus Semien. Semien's a better defender, but Nimmo a much better offensive player. Then, they let Pete Alonso walk and bring in Jorge Polanco. And, Polanco's going to play at 33 and 34, and they seem reluctant to be paying Alonso at ages 33 and 34. And yet I would have paid him way more than Polanco at that money. And they're going to have Polanco play first when he's never played first. And he had to DH mostly last year with sore knees. And one of the stated goals for David Stearns was that he wanted to improve their run prevention and their defense. And Alonso was not a great defender ranging to his right and making plays, and his throwing's not great, but he's the best at picking balls out of the dirt of any first baseman in all of baseball. And he was a plus 48 on picks out of the dirt. The next closest guy was a plus 28, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And so there was an area where Alonso was elite defensively. He didn't always range well, and then his flips to first base sometimes could be errant. It led to the Senga injury. He can't throw well to second. So there were some deficiencies. And so if you want to find what he didn't do well, but he did slug. He was going to hit 38 homers and drive in over 110 runs, and it was a big loss. So they signed Polanco, who's not a bad player. He's just never played first, and he doesn't profile at the position. So then they go after Kyle Tucker, and they lose out on him. And then I think, well, maybe the pivot should be Bellinger because he is kind of Kyle Tucker light in a lot of ways. And it'd be a lesser contract than what you're going to do with Tucker. And instead, they get Bichette, who, again, is pounding another square peg into a round hole. He's a shortstop that was going to play second and now is going to play third. And so, I think it's different. Luis Robert Jr. has not hit for the last 2 years. And he doesn't always run the ball out. He doesn't always chase the ball down on the outfield. It's something that, Mets fans, they're okay if you hustle and don't don't perform sometimes. But if you don't give them the best effort, they're going to let you know. And so I don't know that I love the Luis Robert Jr. signing. And the trade for Peralta, I love it. I think he's great. I'm okay with giving up. I did it myself. I traded for Al Leiter, gave up controllable prospects in the deal, just was able to sign Al Leiter to an extension after I traded for him. I don't know that the Mets are going to be able to sign Peralta, but I think it was a good deal for Milwaukee, and it was a good deal for the Mets to make the deal. And the Tobias Myers addition to the trade, I think, is a sneaky good one for New York.
We'll get to the Dodgers in a second here, Steve, but, just talking to a lot of, because I'm based in the New York area, right, and a bunch of my friends are Mets fans, and they're all fired up by this, right, and I don't think anyone's going to make the case that the Mets are better than the Dodgers right now, unless you are, really drinking the Mets Kool-Aid here. But what would you say to someone who would make the case that right now the Mets are the biggest threat in the National League to the Los Angeles Dodgers? Would you say that's right? Or is another team in the NL the biggest threat to the Dodgers?
Oh, yeah. I don't even think it's I don't think the Mets are a big threat to anybody right now. I think Atlanta is better than New York. I still think Philadelphia is better than New York. And so so I don't love the moves. I don't love the starting pitching. I love McLean and Peralta front of the rotation, but some real questions after that as to what they have. And in the bullpen, they lost the best closer in the game, and so they took less than what they had before at the end of the game too. And I don't know how Devin Williams is going to pitch, and I don't know that I loved how he handled New York last year. And so I have more questions about the Mets maybe than your friends do. But they'll be competitive. There's no question. But I don't look at them as the favorite in the East. I think right now I'd probably have them as the third place team in the division. And I think the Cubs are going to be very good. I think that, the Padres will be competitive. I don't think they're done yet and looking for some bargains in the starting rotation. But, I think the Dodgers are by far head and shoulders the best team. But I think Atlanta is going to be right back in the mix this year as well.
Steve, how about the Yankees bringing back Cody Bellinger and what the Yankees have done this offseason and their prospects in 2026?
Yeah, so I think that, it was good they got Bellinger back. It's an interesting structure to the deal where he gets a lot of money up front and it almost forces him to opt out later. But, they get their guy and they get some protection behind Judge. They had the best offense in baseball last year when it came to run production. Now they're going to need Ben Rice to do it without the protection of Paul Goldschmidt. They're going to need Grisham to do it again. They're going to need Judge's elbow to be okay and stay healthy all season long. They're going to have McMahon figure out who's going to hit, if he's going to hit or not. And Wells has to pick up, and be better, more like he was in 24 than 25. But their pitching, I think, in the long run has a chance to be better. Full season of Cam Schlittler. And Luis Gil, another year removed from Tommy John. You're going to get Garrett Cole back. Rodon had the bone chips removed, but he should be back mid-April. Clark Schmidt should be back at some point. And so I think they've got nice depth with their pitching. I'm a little concerned about their bullpen and the bridge to get to David Bednar at the end. But I think that they're going to be very competitive. But the Red Sox are better. The Orioles are better. The Blue Jays are better. So that division is going to be a real gauntlet this year in the AL East.
Yeah, I as a Yankee fan, I'm just kind of the opinion that until they make a change with Boone and Cashman, that I don't think they're ever going to win. I hope I'm wrong as a Yankee fan. I'm worried that I'm going to be right. A couple more minutes here with Steve Phillips, former Major League Baseball general manager, MLB Network Radio, MLB Network, TSN. He's the best on Twitter at Steve Phillips GM. So, Steve, I can ask you about the Dodgers. I think we're just going to say, they're the best team. They're likely to win the World Series again, likely to become the first team to three-peat since the Yankees, 98 to 2000. Unfortunately, the way the Subway Series went that year for you guys. I think the more interesting thing here as it concerns the Dodgers, Steve, is what's going to happen with labor here in baseball. Is there going to be a work stoppage? Is there going to be a salary cap instituted? A lot of buzz on that potentially happening here over the course of the last week. You're as plugged in as it gets. What do you think happens here over the next couple of years in Major League Baseball as it concerns a potential work stoppage, a salary cap being implemented, et cetera?
Yeah, so certainly the Dodgers signing of Kyle Tucker feeds the beast a little bit. And those owners who are going to champion, willing to stop play, lose games in order to get a change to the system have been fortified in that belief. Now, I think we're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. Not until, 25 years later have we had a team repeat as a World Series champion, right? If you've gone back to the Yankees in 98, 99, 2000, but we had not had one since then. And so we do in many ways have much more parity in baseball than the sports that have salary caps. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs won 3 in a row. The Patriots on the run of success they had with a salary cap in place. And so, I think that it sounds like it's always been a non-starter for the Players Association when it comes to the notion of a salary cap. They don't even want to hear the words uttered, and it's an immediate non-starter. And so, if that's the position the owners are going to take, then I think we're going to just sit there and look at each other for a long time. I think the owners need to figure out what they want and how they want to get there. I think there needs to be an understanding going into that meeting whether a salary cap is even an idea. Like they can fight it and duke it out with each other for months, come to the conclusion they want a salary cap, and then it's a non-starter for the union. So where do you go? I think that it's clear from the union they don't want to do that. So what's a solution to any problem that they believe exists? I mean, I look at it and think we're in America. If I bought a large market team, I paid a premium for it, and with it comes the potential for a better TV deal, better revenues, and I paid a premium to do it. I paid $2.6 billion when you paid $900 million. Well, now what you want is for me to give you and to take care of you and to take from the rich and give to the poor, and sort of, Robin Hood baseball and socializing baseball to where you're going to level the playing field. And because you bought a small market team, I now have to take care of you. Like, that's not the way it works. Like, this is about competition. And so I don't think we have to fix a problem. The Brewers had the best record in baseball last year, and they just didn't win in the playoffs. But they're a small market team. We've had small middle market teams that have been able to compete. The Dodgers had an extraordinary payroll, well beyond anybody else, and they went to Game 7 of the World Series in extra innings to have to find a way to win it. It wasn't an easy thing where they're blowing everyone away. So I don't think we need to fix a problem, but I don't have a vote or a say in it. I think there are enough owners who want to be taken care of by the richer owners, and I don't think salary cap's going to work. So the owners are going to have to figure out a revenue sharing plan that doesn't say salary cap, where they're sharing money with each other in a way to satisfy the small market and then hold the smaller market teams accountable for spending that on players and not pocketing it as profit, which we've seen done. So, it's a long way to answer that. We're going to have a work stoppage. Well, we're going to have a lockout. Whether we lose games or not remains to be seen, and how much work gets done before that will be critical to how quickly we can make a deal.
Steve, appreciate it, man. I know this is a really busy day for you. At Steve Phillips GM, Sirius XM, MLB Network Radio, MLB Network, and TSN. Just maybe have like one more Celsius before your drive home today, my friends, in Connecticut, and we'll catch up with you soon.
You got it. I'll do it. You got it, my man. All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're the best, man. Steve Phillips joining us here on You Better You Bet. More You Better You Bet coming up next.
The defense has been grossly underrated and overlooked consistently throughout the year. They were really an elite unit. Were they as elite as Houston Texans? Statistically, no. Were they as elite as the Seattle Seahawks? Statistically, no. But they were not that far off in the grand scheme of things as a team that really just brought it, man. I know the conditions played a factor there. You had a wet snow, a starter's rain turned to a heavy wet snow late in the game, some light accumulations and guys as a result. Ball was very sloppy. Guys are dropping passes all over the place. C.J. Stroud was just abysmal, though. Decision-making was bad. He was under constant arrest. The offensive line was bad. The blitz packages were exotic. They were well-schemed, well-disguised, and it kept Houston out of sorts and out of sync as a result. Stroud with those 4 INTs, I thought he was going to get yanked for the giraffe neck and Bills at one point in the game, who looked pretty good and, a few starts earlier this season. But D'Amico Ryan stuck with C.J. Stroud. But kudos to New England Patriots on the defensive end. Drake May made some mistakes, again, with his ball protection. I felt that was going to be an issue, and it was at times. And Ramondre Stevenson was awesome between the tackles. Got to give him credit where credit is due, but the defense is what really won the game for New England. It is an area they're just not getting enough love in. A team that's saying, hey, look at us. Our unit is just as elite as some of the others in the NFL.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Best bets for Championship Sunday to start next hour with the whale capper Drew Dinsick. Very much looking forward to that. We'll talk some NBA with Drew as well. We'll continue to take spins on the NFL Coaching Carousel as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make a hire at offensive coordinator. Former Falcons OC Zac Robinson. I'll give you my opinion on that. We'll also talk Mike McDaniel in LA and Brian Daboll potentially in Tennessee. Bets for tonight will close the show. But in today's edition of Man, I Feel Old, today, January 22nd, 2026, marks the 20th anniversary of Kobe Bryant's, the late, great Kobe Bryant's 81-point game against the Toronto Raptors. My personal memory of this game, just to show you how long I've been doing this in this industry. I was working, and this is pre-merger, right, between Sirius and XM satellite radio. So I'm in the newsroom at Sirius satellite radio. I'm cutting tape that day. It was Championship Sunday in the NFL. So that's the day that the Seattle Seahawks beat the Carolina Panthers to win the NFC, to advance to Super Bowl 40. And the Pittsburgh Steelers went on the road to Denver and thumped the Broncos to advance to the Super Bowl, which the Steelers would ultimately win 21-10. I had a big bet on for me at the time, had a big bet on the Broncos in that game. It did not go great. for my Denver Broncos in that game, with the Steelers obviously winning. And I remember being in the newsroom and having like the game on TV, and as he kept scoring and scoring, our focus kind of went off of the NFL and onto Kobe Bryant. And I remember it being a surreal experience because here's the Steelers beating the Broncos on Championship Sunday, and we are watching a random Lakers-Raptors game in January. Such was the greatness and the majesty of Kobe Bryant. And I remember the day that Kobe Bryant died in the helicopter crash with his daughter, and just, one of the most surreal moments, I think, of my life. Sports or otherwise, getting that news and kind of processing all of it. I still kind of can't believe that happened, and Kobe's not here. One of the all-time great athletes in the history of sport, and his magnum opus, and we could talk about the championships, but his magnum opus for a single game, 20 years ago today, 81 points against Jalen Rose and the Toronto Raptors. Rest in peace to the late, great Kobe Bryant. And I don't even like it. To say and his daughter just makes you want to choke up. Final hour, power hour coming up on the other side. We begin it. Talking Conference Championship Sunday with the whale capper, Drew Dinsick.
Indiana took care of business. Just an unbelievable storybook season for a team that entered the night only had, I think, 5 all-time bowl game wins. They got another one, so they got 3 of those this year. That's how much of a perennial doormat Indiana had been year in and year out. Just a punchline. A lot of people saying, you go to a game in Bloomington, you're getting 2 to 3 hours closer to the start of basketball season, but no longer a basketball school is IU. Very much a football school front and center, and one that really deserved to win the national title. I felt they were the best offense, felt they were the best defense, a most balanced team across the board in all of college football pretty much all season long. I saw with my own eyes again in late September when they absolutely pummeled, embarrassed, depended by ILL. And I'm still shivering at what I had to witness, 63-10 mauling in Bloomington. I think that really put them on the map. And, of course, they just kept winning and winning and winning and defying a lot of the people, especially those south of the Mason-Dixon line, south of the Ohio River. Oh, golly, there's no way that Indiana can win a national title in football. This is Alabama country. This is Bulldog country. This is volunteer country. The SEC rules in football. Well, guess what? It happened. And the Big Ten has won now 3 straight consecutive national titles. Just unforeseen, unbelievable. And hopefully, Pat, Kurt Signetti belted up the bar, not had one, but drank at least, I don't know, a 6-pack of beers last night because he earned them.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Bring it up, Kenny. Final hour. You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Nick Kostos, our amazing crew, and you. The Power Hour and every hour here on You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. And I know our guest who's going to join us in a moment loves to bet the Australian Open. Today, BetMGM players will receive an Australian Open odds boost token. To use the token, add an Australian Open bet to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with said token, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. All the bets for tonight coming up to close the show. We will get into Giannis Antetokounmpo and why I think he needs to force his way out of Milwaukee, and soon, and tell you about some of the hirings made in the NFL Coaching Carousel, including Zac Robinson, the new offensive coordinator in Tampa, and why I hate that hire for Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles, and the Buccaneers. But joining us right now, one of our absolute favorites, one of your absolute favorites, our listeners and viewers, the great Drew Dinsick, the Whale Capper, NBC sports betting analyst, Deep Dive podcast on Twitter at @whale_capper. My friend, happy championship weekend in the NFL to you and yours. How are you?
I'm doing well, and happy championship weekend to you. And if you're looking for that bonus bet in the Australian Open, look for this up-and-coming young American player to pull off the upset against Jasmine Paolini. Jovic is coming for her. She's about plus 110, plus 120 in market, and she's the dog of the day in my book.
What time does that match start for those who are so inclined like me, who want to put this bet in as soon as possible?
Like 10 o'clock my time, so 1 o'clock your time.
So
PM?
1 o'clock.
Yeah,
so 1 o'clock in the
PM,
afternoon
my time,
Eastern, 10 a.m. Got it.
1 a.m. your time. Yeah, 1 a.m. your time.
Eva Jovic against Jasmine Paolini.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet that while Drew is giving his first answer here. So thank you for the Australian Open bet. Let's talk some National Football League, my friends. We'll start with the AFC Championship game. And in the betting market, and for our listeners and viewers that don't bet, I think you'll still find this interesting, right? So the Broncos are going to be a small favorite, right? If Bo Nix is the quarterback in the game, like a 1-point favorite, let's call it, against New England.
Sure.
So now with Jarrett Stidham set to start, New England obviously becomes the favorite in the game, despite being the road team. This was as high as 6, Drew. We're now seeing at BetMGM that it's down to 4.5. So I think I think you'll confirm this, right? This is sports bettors saying, okay, like, yes, Nix is better than Stidham, but maybe he's not that much better than Jarrett Stidham. So I would love your market analysis here on Patriots Broncos, what it means for our audience, and your handicap for the game. All things AFC Championship, my friend, Patriots and Broncos.
Sure. So I think your read is right, but maybe even more than just people kind of synthesizing what is the true gap between Stidham and Nix. It maybe is just a vote of confidence in Sean Payton. At least that's the way I read it. There are certainly some people who have done a deep dive into Jarrett Stidham.
Well done.
Unfortunately, most of his tape is preseason tape. So if you're basing your opinion on the preseason tape, then best of luck to you. I can't exactly tell you he was going up against championship playoff caliber defenses in those games. But regardless, like, he can throw, like, he's got an arm, and there's definitely a world where Sean Payton's going to craft up some scripted stuff. Certainly, I think that could look good. So. Yeah, I mean, there's a world here where the Broncos playing at home with an outstanding offensive line, give Stidham time, give Stidham some easy buttons, and put together a couple of efficient drives, score some points, and put the Patriots on their heels early in this game. In that world, if you're going to live trade this one, what do you want? You want Broncos in pocket to start, just in the hopes that they roll out some surprise stuff. Because again, like. Usually at this point, if you're making a strong case for this is going to be a defensive game, like the Patriots defense is going to have the answers. Well, the Patriots defense is on record. They don't have the tape. They just don't know. They don't know his tendencies. They don't have game-specific defensive play in mind. They're just going to go out there and play football and hope that they can get a couple turnovers and get some stops. And they may be able to do that over the balance of this game. But, the way that I see this, I feel like Sean Payton tipped his hand a little bit yesterday with the media, saying stuff like, we're going to let this thing rip. We're not going to play conservative football. We're going to go out there and win this game, which to me, at least, is I think, true. And is signal that he's not going to have a very relatively conservative offense and try to get game manager type of play out of Stidham. He's going to let him throw. And in that world, I think he's going to score some points in this one. The other side of the coin is where I'm the most interested here, because I've been sizing up this matchup for weeks, expecting that the Patriots were going to get here and that, the market was going to be overrating the Denver defense in this spot. And I think that's exactly what we are looking at here. If you are a believer in Stidham, you're taking the Broncos, I guess. If you are a doubter in the Broncos defense, you are betting the over in this game, because there is absolutely a world where Drake May, who has had no issues whatsoever hitting home runs against good defenses in this kind of final run in the playoffs, I think is going to be able to find some success against the Broncos. And the Broncos defense now for 2 years has been statistical darlings. They've been, just world eaters. But it's come against bad quarterbacks for the most part, and when they've gone up against good quarterbacks, if those as long as those quarterbacks are not, turning the ball over 4 times a game, they're getting beat. And you can even look at last week's performance from Allen and be like, if he has a B game instead of a C or a D plus type of game, Buffalo wins that thing going away. And I think Patriots can, put a similar difficult, position for the Broncos here, whether they're in comeback mode or whether they're playing from ahead. I see the Patriots scoring into the high 20s here. I think the idea of Stidham, kind of taking him off the leash, taking the training wheels off, letting them get after it. That'll bear fruit. They'll score points, but it could also induce turnovers. That's where the Patriots have been thriving defensively in the last couple of months. So this to me is a total that is about 3 points too low. I would make this 45.5, 46. And I think the Patriots are going to kind of do what they did last week in terms of touchdowns, not field goals, and put some serious pressure on the Broncos team. Side, I don't have a strong opinion. I'm like around 6. I think it's about a 6.5 point downgrade from Knicks to Stidham personally. And not even because I like Knicks, but because what Knicks and Peyton were doing was such a perfect synergy. And now you got to figure out on the fly how to do it with Stidham. There'll be some bumps there, but I do think Broncos will score enough points that this 42.5 is in serious jeopardy.
I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but I'm going to interpret what you just said and then give you the opportunity to say if I'm right or not. And even if, just for our listeners and viewers, even if Drew confirms what I'm about to say, like always, gamble responsibly. You don't have to agree with anything any of us say. So if you agree with Drew here, because it sounds to me like you're very confident in this bet. I'll give you the opportunity to say that in a second. And if you want to bet, just please bet responsibly. So you say that you think that this is 3 points off. And listening to you talk about it, it sounds like you love this bet. Like, I'm just like, is this going to be like for you like a bigger bet than normal coming up with in the over with the Patriots Broncos game?
Not a bigger bet than normal, but my biggest bet of this week. Yeah, my biggest bet of this week. I don't have much on the side here. I think my most common outcomes here are Patriots by 3, 4, 6, 7. Right. So I'm right around this number. I don't think there's like a obvious miss here on the side. I think the Patriots come through. I have Patriots futures, so I'm not inclined to add more at this price point. But I do think this total's low. And as far as like, I've been full staking a lot in the playoffs so far, which is rare for me. Usually like my futures book is what I'm trying to ride in the playoffs because most of these teams are just solved and there's not a lot of markets that are bad. But I've been staking full stake for a lot of the playoffs so far. Over in this game is my only full stake bet.
There you have it. Over in this game, in the AFC Championship game for Drew Dinsick with the Patriots and the Broncos. You bet on this Thursday. Drew Dinsick is our guest, NBC sports betting analyst, co-host of the Deep Dive podcast on Twitter at whale_capper. All right, NFC Championship game. And for people that follow Drew on Twitter, you should, at whale_capper. You know that Drew's been riding the LA Rams for a lot of the season in the NFC. Now they enter Seattle in this game as the dog. The Seahawks are 2.5 point favorites, but we're close to this going to 3. It did hit 3 earlier in the week before coming back down to 2.5. The total in the game is 47. So I'll hit you with the two-parter here. Same question I asked Brian Baldinger, Odyssey NFL Insider, last hour. Question number 1, is this the Super Bowl? So winner of this game, in your estimation, will win Super Bowl 60. And then, who do you like in the game and why between the Rams and the Seahawks in Seattle?
If the Rams win, this is the Super Bowl. Because I think they're coming through against whoever comes out of the AFC. Seahawks a little bit more of a question mark, right? Like, they still have Sam Darnold under center. Like, can the Patriots beat them? Yes. Can the Broncos beat them? Maybe. But definitely Super Bowl stakes feels fair. Rams, as you mentioned, is kind of the I'm naked exposed to winning the Super Bowl with the Rams, and I basically bet this game 6 weeks ago or whatever it was before Thursday Night Football. I was pretty convicted at that time the Rams were going to win that game. They were going to lock up home field, and then that was the last chance to get on the train to ride the Rams for the rest of the season. Obviously I was wrong. I went back and rewatched that game this week just to remind myself, and I came out of that one being like, oh, the Rams are so clearly the better team. They closed 1.5 point dogs there. There was some sharp money at the close for the Seahawks that really flipped that thing. And rewatching her first half in particular, I'm just like, how did the Rams end up losing this game? The 2-point conversion recovery by Charbonnet was just like one of the weirder, dumber plays of the entire NFL season. The punt return by Shaheed was a little bit fluky. And it's like, if you really want to me to be, if you give me the truth serum, like, is there a unit that scares the living daylights out of me for the Rams in this game? Obviously it's their special teams. Like that those guys are not good. And the idea of that being their unwinding again is spooky. But I think the Rams defense is kind of proven now that they're effectively at full strength. And I know that Byron Young was a bit of a question mark, and kind of think he's probably not going to go. And that might ultimately be, a small downgrade for them. I think the fact that they're kind of coming together as a secondary and playing a lot better is noteworthy, and it's going to keep the Seahawks a little bit in check. Seahawks are coming into this game, in my opinion, at a bit of a deficit in terms of health. Charles Cross is absolutely worth watching. His foot injury and his missing practice matters for sure. If Jared Verse lines up on that side of the ball and is consistently in the backfield terrorizing Sam Darnold seeing ghosts and having a negative performance feels very likely to me. And the fact that he doesn't have a safety blanket like Charbonnet in the passing game, I think is going to be of interest as well. They're really still, we have not seen a second option emerge for the Seattle team beyond JSN in the passing game. And if they are at some point at a deficit like what we saw on Thursday Night Football when they played a couple weeks ago, I'm not strongly convicted that they're going to find their way back into this game. So Rams for me ought to be closer to a pick. I definitely think that if Charles Cross is not playing, that the Rams should be a small favorite. And I don't mind at all, having my fate decided by Matt Stafford and company against Sam Darnold.
So Rams in the NFC game, over in the AFC game for Drew Dinsick. Bets this weekend on Conference Championship Sunday, just to confirm that.
That's right. I added a little Rams, even though didn't need to.
I love it.
I think I took money line plus 126. So, they need to come through for me.
All right, you bet on this Thursday. A couple more minutes here with the whale capper, Drew Dinsick. Last time we had you on the show, Drew, you were talking up the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference, and it made me sick as a Knicks fan. And then my Knicks, to be fair to you, man, my Knicks have been, 54-point win last night against the Nets, notwithstanding, have been absolutely brutal. Any updated thoughts on the Knicks, on the Eastern Conference? Like, it looks like the Knicks maybe got it back a little bit last night with the Giannis trade potentially looming. Where are you at on the East right now here, Drew, as it concerns the futures markets and just hashtag knowing ball?
Yeah, well, the Giannis, kind of the looming potential of Giannis really disrupting this market is very real. Seeing the Celtics at the top of the board is encouraging. Obviously, I agree with that. I like to see that. They've shortened a lot since I bet them. But if you get the world-stopping breaking news, Giannis is going to the Knicks between now and the trade deadline, it's not going to surprise me. I don't think it's going to surprise you. Like, there has been, kind of cloak and dagger rumors that this was going to happen for a long time. Some of the prediction markets over the summer, you saw some real confident, there's talks, there's deals there. They've crafted a package. And honestly, if you look at the way that the Knicks roster is set up with some of the contracts they gave to guys who are not playing, and you do the math, you're like, wait a minute, like, why do they add up to that number? Like, that is exactly the number they need to make this trade happen. Ball knowers would say, why would the Bucks do that? Why would they take back, this poo-poo platter of, nickels for $1? I get that, but their backs are against the wall. I think, certainly Giannis sounds to me like he has told them very seriously that he is not going to sign a long-term deal there, which means every day that goes by after the trade deadline, they lose leverage, and it's pretty fast. His getting any kind of compensation back for him will sound good if you don't do it now. So I think ultimately that could be the black swan that really blows this market up, because Knicks with Giannis and Brunson as kind of their two anchors, that's your best team in the East. It's probably a decent amount. And it probably takes them to like plus 220-ish to win the East at this current time. Now, I do still think Jason Tatum comes back, and that's really the bet on the Celtics, which is that once people synthesize that and kind of reprice the Celtics with Tatum for a playoff run, they're going to be like, oh, the Celtics should be odds on for the East. But again, like, in a world where Giannis is a Knick and Tatum is a Celtic, now we're cooking with gas, and the East is all of a sudden super fascinating. So It's a 2-team race, in my opinion, between the Celtics and the Knicks. I don't think it's really worth considering the Pistons because I don't think they have anywhere close to the supporting cast for Cade Cunningham to win more than one playoff series. And sorry to Pistons fans if you don't agree with me, but tell me who is the positive offensive player if defenses are keying on Cade Cunningham in a 7-game series, and I'm listening. But Cavaliers are fugazi. The Magic are a joke. The 76ers are not a playoff serious team, and I can't even believe the Heat are listed on the board where they are in terms of rating, considering how they've been playing the last 2 weeks. So right. Celtics, Knicks, choose your fighter, and I literally think you can specifically choose your team between those two and then just cross your fingers that you get good news on Giannis or Tatum.
Well, can't wait to see how the next couple weeks play out as a lifelong fan of the New York Knicks. Let's close with this last one. Anything in the Western Conference tickle your fancy right now? Looks like OKC's got its groove back. The Rockets are playing amazing. Anything on the Western? Jimmy Butler out for the year. Give me like 30 seconds to 60 seconds on the West here, and we'll wrap.
Yeah, the Jimmy Butler injury was absolutely brutal because the Golden State Warriors were playing like monsters, and that was sort of the team that was coming for me until this throws massive cold water on them. I don't know that there is a good second team in the West right now. Oklahoma City at minus 145 is short, and if it dips,
you don't
at
like
all,
Houston?
I mean, if you put me to the test and said who is the second best team, who is the most likely representative in the Western Conference Finals against OKC, I would say Houston. But I recently saw those teams play, and it was not a fair contest. It was, and like the first game of the season was Rockets Thunder, and you remember that 2 overtime classic. Like I came out of that one like, oh baby, like people are going to be sleeping on this Rockets team all year long because they're going to have some games where their offense just doesn't look good, but their defense is perfect for really making the Thunder miserable. And for whatever reason, just the pieces have not come together the way I thought they were. And then maybe it's just a midseason malaise, and they're going to sharpen up in March and be dangerous again in April. But right now, I don't give them much of a shot of actually beating the Thunder in a best of 7 series. There's a perfect, there's an insane world where the Spurs do something ridiculous in a 1-4, knock out the Thunder, and kind of clear the path for the Rockets or the Nuggets. But you're counting on a lot of things at that point, and you're just best off keeping your powder dry and betting the Spurs in that series if you think that's what's going to happen, rather than shooting on the Rockets and the Nuggets. The kind of the bottom right now is where I think your best bets in the West are. The Lakers are obviously sputtering aggressively. They need Austin Reeves back so badly, and they need LeBron James to honorably bow out of the usage he is absorbing on that team. I know, good luck. Yeah, so yeah, it's not a good bet that that's going to happen, which means the Lakers are going to probably find their way into the plan. The Clippers, I think, are going to find their way into the plan. That's probably going to be your 7-8, which will be fun. And then Timberwolves right where they ought to be. Everybody else kind of in that 4, 5, 6 range, 5, 6, 7, 8 range. None of them are real threats, I don't think. So don't mind a bet on Clippers to make the playoffs the way that they're playing right now. I would put them right now as a top 12 team in the NBA with the quality that you're getting from Kawhi offensively and defensively, and now the fact that Bradley Beal is no longer part of the equation. So, Clippers to me are sort of the one upside team in the West. But believe me, like if you bet them to win the West at these absurd prices like 50-1, have a plan to get the heck out of it because it's not getting across the finish line.
You're the best on Twitter at whale_capper, NBC Sports, the Deep Dive Podcast. Good luck with the bets this weekend. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right, guys. Enjoy the weekend. Best of luck.
Drew Dinsicks here with us on You Better You Bet. I thought his handicap, I like the Rams also. I thought his handicap of Patriots Broncos I really liked it. Doesn't mean the bet's going to win, but I thought it made a lot of sense for the over. If you think Jarrett Stidham can play well and you've got confidence in Sean Payton, I loved that. Tough to disagree with the Eastern Conference stuff. I do disagree with Drew on one thing he said about the Western Conference. And how about this for a tease for everybody? On the other side, we'll talk some Giannis also. We got to get into some of the NFL Coaching Carousel stuff as well. I'm going to tell everybody the one player that you needed to be watching for down the stretch in the NBA that could decide who wins this year's Western Conference, and I guarantee it's not who you're expecting. Here on a Thursday, Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM.
Indiana took care of business. Just an unbelievable storybook season for a team that entering the night only had, I think, like 5 all-time bowl game wins. They got another one, so they got 3 of those this year. That's how much of a perennial doormat Indiana had been year in and year out. Just a punchline. A lot of people saying, you go to a game in Bloomington, you're getting like 2 to 3 hours closer to the start of basketball season, but no longer a basketball school is IU. Very much a football school front and center, and one that really deserved to win the national title. I felt they were the best offense, felt they were the best defense, a most balanced team across the board in all of college football pretty much all season long. I saw with my own eyes again in late September when they absolutely pummeled, embarrassed, depended by ILL. And I'm still shivering at what I had to witness, 63-10 mauling in Bloomington. I think that really put them on the map. And of course, they just kept winning and winning and winning and defying a lot of the people, especially those south of the Mason-Dixon line, south of the Ohio River. Oh, golly, there's no way that Indiana can win a national title in football. This is Alabama country. This is Bulldog country. This is volunteer country. The SEC rules in football. Well, guess what? It happened. And the Big Ten has won now 3 straight consecutive national titles. Just unforeseen, unbelievable. And hopefully, Pat, Kurt Signetti belled up the bar, not had one, but drank at least, I don't know, a 6-pack of beers last night because he earned them.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
As someone who likes the LA Rams on Sunday to beat the Seattle Seahawks, and full previews of both conference championship games coming up on the show tomorrow. Looking forward to breaking down both games, the Rams and the Seahawks, and the Patriots and the Broncos. We'll roll through all the handicaps, all the storylines on the Friday edition of the show. I was heartened to hear that our friend Drew Dinsick, whom I really respect when it comes to betting, and I want to be really careful with this all the time on this new show, with the new platform, with a ton more distribution, way more people listening, way more people watching, including our friends at Nesson. Shout out to all of you guys. Just because we have a betting expert on the show and he or she has an opinion, it doesn't mean that that bet's going to win. So even if Drew feels super confident about the over in the Patriots-Broncos game or the Rams, I happen to like both those bets. We don't have to be right. You don't have to agree with us. You can agree with us, and that's great if you do. Just please always make sure that you bet responsibly. And please do it at our show sponsor, BetMGM. I thought Drew had interesting stuff to say as well about the Eastern Conference. Choose your fighter with the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. And he thinks the Thunder should be more of a favorite than they are in the Western Conference, currently a minus price to win the West. All of my bets for tonight coming up to close the show. YouTube.com/@thekostos. YouTube.com/@thekostos. The live chat buzzing today. We got a bunch of comments that I'll read here. Jarrett Stidham's going to get crushed. Drake May wasn't stopped by the Texans' defense. Broncos have no chance. Stidham won't be able to keep up. The Patriots are 4.5-point road favorites. Betting market kind of agrees with that take. And I think the decision that you have to make if you want to bet this game is, do you think Jarrett Stidham can keep this game within arm's reach for the Denver Broncos? If I had to bet the game, I would bet Denver plus the points. I might just abandon that and just bet the over. I thought Drew made a very convincing case for the over in the game. How about our friend Bob Custer says, get out to Reno, Nevada. He will treat me to a jumbo Java chip frappuccino with 2 extra shots. So I appreciate that, Bob. Let's talk about coffee for a second. I am the lamest coffee drinker of all time. My wife and I love coffee. And whenever we go to a coffee shop, my wife always wants to get something, I don't know, here's your caramel latte with a couple pumps of caramel and whatever nonsense, or oat milk, whatever. I know a lot of people drink their coffee like that, right? Go to Starbucks and get something with 9 ingredients and the cold foam and whatever. I drink black coffee. If I have iced coffee, it's black iced coffee. When I drink hot coffee, it is black hot coffee. I don't want anything in it. Nothing in that son of a bitch. I'm looking to mainline caffeine. So this is not me intimating or insinuating that the jumbo Java chip frappuccino with 2 extra shots is not delicious. I am sure it is a sugary confectionery treat that will get you hyped up and ready to run through a wall, literally and figuratively. When it comes to coffee, just give me a black iced coffee, give me a black hot coffee, and I am very happy. And I understand that I'm in the minority here, but that's my feeling on coffee, and I love me some coffee. I loved Steve Phillips Steve Phillips. And Bill, how old is Steve Phillips now? Is he 60? He looks great. Steve is one of these guys that actually looks better as he ages. Steve has had 3 cups of coffee and a Celsius energy drink. He's 62. He looks like he's 50. He looks great. That's crazy. Now, I know people will generally say to me, because I talk fast and because I'm hyper, I get it. You're right. I know. Trust me. I had my kindergarten, report card. I think my mom still has it in her house. I think it actually says on it, or maybe the teacher said it to my mom, I can't imagine this child ever sleeping. So I get it. I'm hyper. I understand. Even I don't drink that much caffeine. I get whatever the biggest size at Starbucks is, the Trenta, I think it is. Black iced coffee starts. And then when I'm done with my work for the show, there's a bodega down the block that I go to here in New York City. I go and get myself a small hot coffee, and I drink that as we're coming on the air. So I'm at a big ass iced coffee and a small hot coffee. That is my caffeine intake every day. Steve Phillips, 3 cups of coffee and an energy drink. How about our boss, Mitch Rosen of Westwood One Sports, and he runs the Score in Chicago. Mitch has 18 shots of espresso every day. I mean, different strokes for different folks. kind of just run naturally here for the most part because I'm insane. And trust me, I know. Our friend Sports Wager says no one likes Nick Sirianni, and that's why no one wants to be the offensive coordinator. Look, you cannot like Nick Sirianni and also want to be a head coach and know that opportunity, like those yellow things on the ground in Mario Kart where you drive over them and it shoots you forward, this can supercharge your ability to be a head coach moving forward in the National Football League. So thanks to everyone for the YouTube comments. Maybe we'll get a couple more in over the course of the show today. YouTube.com/@thekostos, @THEKOSTOS. I can be found on all social platforms there as well. And subscribe to the YouTube page, youtube.com/@thekostos. Couple miscellaneous notes in the world of sports before we wrap up the show with my bets for tonight. So we were going to play Giannis sound coming back from break, and the sound is apparently terrible, so we're not going to waste your time and your ears with Giannis sound from last night. But basically, here's what happened. The Bucks got blown out by the Thunder, 122-102. And Giannis, after the game, was asked about it because the Bucks have lost 4 or 5, and 3 of those 4 losses have been by 18 points or more. And Milwaukee currently finds itself in the 11 seed in the East, a game and a half out of the 10. So what does that mean to the uninitiated? If the season ended today, the Milwaukee Bucks would not be in the playoffs. Giannis would not be in the playoffs if the season ended today. And it doesn't end today. But that's still crazy. In a year where, Milwaukee uses the stretch provision on Damian Lillard, which a lot of people criticized, and signs Miles Turner, and basically doing everything they can to duct tape this together so that the Bucks can make some sort of a run in a bad Eastern Conference, so Giannis wants to stick around, that this has pretty much been worst case scenario for Milwaukee. And Giannis, after the game last night, and I want people to view it through this prism, right? Giannis, and how do we know what I'm about to say is true? Because he says it. That he has been very careful throughout this entire journey, this entire run with Milwaukee. He has never publicly demanded a trade. He always stops short of criticizing the organization. That's never been his MO. He's very loyal to the city of Milwaukee and to the Bucks organization and to Bucks fans. And he did bring a championship to Milwaukee in 2021, down 2-0 to the Suns, and Milwaukee winning 4 straight games. So if all of that's true, and it is, that Giannis is very careful about how he presents himself to the media and will never outwardly criticize or demand a trade. The fact that Giannis, after the game last night, blown out by the Thunder, says, we're playing selfish, the effort's not there, etc., this stuff matters. And I'm going to use a pro wrestling analogy here. Giannis right now is like a wrestler who is teasing a heel turn, right? And one of the ones that you have to be of a certain age to know this, but even if you're not of a certain age, it's kind of like a cultural thing, right? When Shawn Michaels turns on Marty Jannetty, they were the Rockers, and he throws Marty Jannetty through the glass window of the barber shop, the interview segment hosted by Brutus the Barber Beefcake, a seminal moment in the history of professional wrestling. And Shawn Michaels, up until that point, had been teasing this heel turn, right? He started to dress differently. He started to become more of an individual as opposed to the tag team. And they have this great moment where he turns on Marty Jannetty. Giannis right now is kind of in this arc where he's starting to tease his heel turn. So he's wearing the sunglasses when he didn't used to. And now he's got the leather jacket on, and he never used to wear the leather jacket. And he's on the cusp of delivering the sweet chin music and fully turning heel. And my advice to Giannis, not as someone who's anti-Milwaukee, I'm not, or anti-Milwaukee Buck, I'm not at all. I am a Knicks fan, and I do want him to come to my team, but it has nothing to do with that. Giannis has got to force his way out. The Milwaukee Bucks have a 0.0% chance of contending this year in the East, and they just lost Kevin Porter, who, and for a normal team wouldn't be a big deal. Milwaukee losing him matters a lot. He's out indefinitely per head coach Doc Rivers. Giannis has got to force his way out. He has to. The trade deadline's coming up Super Bowl week, Thursday, February 5th. We got a couple weeks here, 2 weeks from today. He's got 2 weeks to get the hell out of Dodge and force his way out. And I think it would be to my Knicks. And look, I would love for that to happen, obviously, as a Knicks fan. And the Knicks got their lick back a little bit, got their groove back, blew out the Nets last night by 54, ending their losing streak, hopefully a sign of better things for my favorite team. But if Giannis wants to win this year, he needs to do what he has never wanted to do. He's got to turn heel. And people will hate him for it in the short term, but they'll understand in the long term. Giannis, it's time. Warm up the band, sweet chin music, Bucks through the glass, and get the hell out of Milwaukee. And I mean this. No disrespect to the Bucks or Bucks fans at all. Wisconsin sports fans. None. None intended. Just that don't we think now that this needs to happen. And last note here on the NBA, and we'll do some NFL on the other side. Just because I teased it with Drew. I teased going to break, and Drew even stuck around and was like, wow, that was a great tease. I wonder who you're going to say. The player in the Western Conference that I think people need to be watching over the next stretch of time that could potentially impact who wins the West. That player is Reed Sheppard. The third overall pick in last year's NBA draft, the former Kentucky guard to the Houston Rockets. So a couple nights ago, the Rockets have a big fourth quarter comeback to beat the San Antonio Spurs. 29-14, outscoring the Spurs in the fourth quarter. Reed Sheppard in that game scored 21 points, and he was fantastic. Now, remember back in the offseason, the Rockets get Kevin Durant, and there was all this excitement, and there should be. Fred VanVleet tears his ACL out for the season. And a lot of people, including me, say, the Rockets could win 55 games, be a big factor. But losing VanVleet's probably going to cap their upside as far as beating the Thunder, being a championship-level team. What happens if Reed Sheppard is really good? And he continues this level of play moving forward. Does it change how you feel about the 2025-26 Houston Rockets? It might mean he wins Sixth Man of the Year as well. Worth a look at that betting market if you think Reed Sheppard's going to keep this rolling. On the other side, NBA bets coming up for tonight. Not a huge slate, but we'll roll through some games that I find interesting, and we'll talk about some of the offensive coordinator hires in the National Football League. To wrap it up on a Thursday, Nick Kostos, You Better You Bet, here on Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM.
The thing I am adding to the list this week, Alex, something that's kind of bothered me a lot. And it's a phrase that we use in sports way too often. It's the phrase 110%. Go out there and give it 110%. Go out there and give it your all. You hear it all the time. Give it 110%. First of all, guys, that's mathematically impossible. Unless you're my car's gas gauge that one night in college, you're not giving it 110%. The people who say 110% are like the same people that say gazillion, or like the people that say 100 and go out and give it 110%. They're the people in the corporate world that like use words like synergy, right? The people that use the phrase go out and give it 110% probably subscribe to all of David Goggins' podcasts. I just think it is time we lay to rest the give it 110%. All right. Okay. Now, look, let's say hypothetically you could actually give it 110%. We work in sports talk radio. We live on hypotheticals, right? Hypothetically, if 110% is attainable, why stop at 110%? Why not give 150%? Why not give 368%? Why not give 971%? Why are we stopping at 110? Who came up with that number? Just give it 100%. Go all out. You cannot give 110%. And if you can, why aren't you giving more?
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
All right, some thank yous to dole out before we wrap up the show with some NFL news and our bets for tonight in the world of sports. Three tremendous guests joined us today on the show. Drew Dinsick, NBC Sports betting analyst, the Whale Capper, Brian Baldinger, Odyssey Sports NFL insider, and former Major League Baseball general manager, the great Steve Phillips. Thanks very much to our guests today on the show. Bill, can I promote some of the guys we have coming up tomorrow, or should we hold that just in case? You could type to me in the show chat. Our executive producer is Bill Zimmerman. Our tactical director, Tyler Morales. Our engineer, the great Kenny Henderson. Found out yesterday while I was off that Kenny Henderson's grandfather played with Willie Mays, which is pretty awesome. Explains the fact that Kenny is 6'4" and looks like an athlete. Thank you very much to our friend Kenny Henderson. And our video producer, I don't know if Dan Turner is here today. Our friend Downtown Mike Brown is doing an awesome job. Thank you to Downtown Mike Brown. Tomorrow on the show, a minimum of two guests will join us. Pro sports bettor Rob Pizzola with his best bets for Championship Sunday. And Craig Carton of WFAN in New York just had his national show on Fox Sports 1. One of the greatest sports radio hosts of all time. Craig Carton will join us coming up tomorrow on You Better You Bet. Very much looking forward to that. Okay, bunch of NFL news items to hit. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers earlier today on this Thursday named former Falcons offensive coordinator Zac Robinson as their new offensive coordinator, replacing the fired Josh Grisard. Obviously, Kevin Stefanski takes over in Atlanta. He'll be calling the plays for the Falcons. They hired Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach, retained Jeff Ulbrich. We had Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated on the show on Tuesday, and Connor agreed with me that as of right now, this is the best new staff that's been put together. And we'll see what some of these other staffs look like. But Atlanta's done an awesome job. I love what Kevin Stefanski's done, what Matt Ryan has done thus far in Atlanta. So Tampa takes the former Falcons offensive coordinator, Zac Robinson. I want to really dislike this hire because the Falcons offense was a disappointment, both last year and year one with Zac Robinson and this past season in 2025 with Zac Robinson. The reason why I'm going to stop short of saying I hate the hire, I don't think I like it, but the reason why I'll stop short of saying I hate it or I don't think it's going to work, and this is where I kind of need to take an L. I thought Michael Penix Jr. was going to be awesome this year for the Falcons, and he just wasn't. And he doesn't throw the ball over the middle of the field, and he loves to be in the pistol, and it's just these... It feels like Penix kind of put the team in the offense into a certain box. And maybe it's not the offense and the box that they really wanted to be in. And it remains to be seen if Michael Penix Jr. can play in the NFL. And I was wrong. I thought he was going to be great, and he still can be. But he wasn't last year. So I guess it's possible that Zac Robinson with Baker Mayfield can cook a little bit. I'm skeptical of that because of how it went in Atlanta with Penix and Kirk Cousins. But look, Cousins was coming off an Achilles, and then Penix might not be very good. I would say I more dislike the hire than like it, but I can see the vision here for Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even if I would say right now the Falcons would be my favorite in the division. Despite the fact that Baker Mayfield hates Kevin Stefanski, apparently, after his tweet that went viral on Tuesday. And maybe that'll be something that will matter this season if Baker's really trying to stick it to his old coach in Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski. And while it's not official yet, if Mike McDaniel gets hired as the offensive coordinator in LA with the Chargers, I mean, A+, grand slam, slam dunk. There's no question that McDaniel is one of the best offensive minds and play callers in the NFL. There's no question. I think there's question as to whether he can handle the head job. But as far as a coordinator goes, I mean, he's at the top of everybody's list. So he goes to LA, not done yet, but if this indeed is made official, and it looks like it will be, first off, he gets to work under Jim Harbaugh, who is unquestionably a great coach. With Justin Herbert, getting the two stud tackles back in Alton Slater, Omari and Hampton, Lad McConkey, Gadsden, Quentin Johnston, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith. Got a lot of good weapons to work with. How is that offense not going to be awesome this year? With Mike McDaniel calling it and Justin Herbert as the quarterback. So McDaniel will go from going with Tua Tagovailoa, who the Dolphins took over Justin Herbert in 2020, to the guy that they should have picked in Justin Herbert. That is an A+ grand slam, slam dunk, home run hire for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers if and when it is made official. And with that, let's get to all our bets for tonight to wrap up the show. Kenny, please drop the dope ass beat. Today, BetMGM players will receive an Australian Open odds boost token, which I have used on Eva Jovic, who Drew Dinsicks liked earlier this hour on the show against Jasmine Paolini. That match starting around 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. To use the token, add an Australian Open bet to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app today. All right, I'm ignoring college basketball tonight. Not a lot of great games on the slate. We do have some interesting NBA games tonight, though. Let's start with the Charlotte Hornets, who are 6.5-point dogs on the road in Orlando against the Magic. And the wins and losses haven't been there for the Hornets, but Charlotte kind of like a darling in like the analytical community. Because Charlotte is actually, it feels like they're a really hard luck team at the moment right now. Like point differential per game of minus 0.1, and they're 12 games under 500, which suggests regression to the mean is coming at some point. I'll take the 6.5 with Charlotte tonight on the road in Orlando against the Magic. We think Kawhi Leonard may return to the lineup tonight for the Clippers. They are hosting the Los Angeles Lakers. If Kawhi is back, Let's wait for the betting market to move, and if and when that happens, I would like to bet the Los Angeles Lakers. So Lakers will be my bet, but only if Kawhi's back and the market moves. It's 11:53 a.m. Eastern time. We're not going to know for quite some time if that happens, but that's my what-if scenario. And I did bet the Rockets -1.5 earlier this morning. This number out to 2.5 now on the road in Philly against the Sixers. I'm really into the Houston Rockets right now, and I'm looking to play them at a small price to win on the road at the Philadelphia 76ers. That does it for the tremendous Football Thursday edition of You Better You Bet here on Westwood One Sports. Our friends Black and Abdallah are coming up next. Phenomenal Football Friday tomorrow. All my analysis, storylines, handicaps, bets for Championship Sunday in the NFL. Pro sports bettor Rob Pizzola will join us. Craig Carton, sports radio legend, WFAN in New York, will join us as well. So until we meet again, dear listener and dear viewer, I'm Nick Kostos wishing you minimal sweats, winning bets, the absolute very best of luck. Black and Abdallah coming up next here on Westwood One Sports.
It's got to be Justin Jefferson. You know, honestly, there were a lot of people out there that thought that JJ to JJ would be dynamite, and it was the antithesis of that this year. McCarthy just wildly inconsistent. And a guy obviously was dealing with injury. He got some, Max Brosmer, which, brought the overall statistical output way down for Justin Jefferson. I had 141 targets. He had 84 grabs. Okay, nothing to scoff at there, but barely over 1,000 yards receiving. And not one, but only two. He had 2 total touchdowns this year. He was a guy that was a wide receiver 3. In terms of ADP, his overall ADP was at pick number 5.58. So chances are he was a borderline top 5 pick overall in your fantasy draft, and he finished at wide receiver 36, barely starting worthy in 12-team leagues that require 3 wide receivers to start. He was number 68 in catchable target rate. Again, not his fault. His quarterback play was shoddy. He was number 10 in YAC, only a 54.2 passer rating when targeted. That is just wretched and disgusting. And number 51 in yards per catch at 12.5. I mean, obviously, there was going to point up. I'll be curious to see what the discount is on him in drafts next season, but are we really a believer in J.J. McCarthy? The jury is still very much out on his overall development. Jefferson, usually a surefire, round 1 pick, may slip in like the back half of round 2, maybe early round 3, because people simply do not trust McCarthy, and my hand is raised. I'm one of them.